Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this is of particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Cannabear, Adam Price, Fibre Oats, Bogey, Michael Kahn, Rob H, Ben White, Maximum Gravy, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B Styles, Troy Shuker, Maris, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Muted, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, and David Wayne Foster. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
What's going on now? And that was what, like 50 years ago? Did I mention this yesterday?
I don't think so, Neil.
No, All in the Family, you say? I just caught the beginning of that.
Yeah, you know, that's the Archie Bunker. I used to watch it as a kid.
Is Archie Bunker
it's insane.
to the moon? Is that Archie Bunker? Where he threatens to hit her all the time?
No, that's the Honeymooners, Ralph Cramden. Archie Bunker is eat it. Would you shut it? There's the son-in-law and his daughter living with him. He's like a racist. But it's like crazy because the things they're talking about, it's like you could just bring them right to this time. And it would fit right in.
Because you're going to explain the parallel to me, Neil. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I just said he's a racist. You can't read between the lines. The son-in-law is living in the house with them. He's going to school. He can't support his wife, so he lives with them. And all he's talking about is how the white man has kept the black, Hispanic, and everybody down. That's the banter that's today. Same thing.
Well, back then, Italians were not grouped as whites at the time.
Still not.
And rightly so.
Exactly. We're Italian. We're our own.
Yeah. Go back to your bloody country. Off you go. Bloody wops. Is it wops? Is that the right insult?
Yeah, without papers.
I'm a mutt. So I'm kind of a beige, off-white, I would guess.
What I did find interesting was that he's going to college and he's learning. He's supposed to be learning in college, but that's what's going on today. What they learned in college was socialism, because that's what Archie called them, a socialist. And now you're seeing the fruits of it today.
Well, you know, teaching idealized forms of government aren't necessarily bad. But
they teach them the way they teach them against what America is, it is.
Well, right, but we're not a capitalist country either, you know. So I think it's a little lopsided the way they teach it, but
Look, it is what it is. What are you going to start apologizing for everything?
no, I'm just saying that if you if you have a country where the market is free, it eventually decays into a system in which only a couple have everything. That's just a normal way that capitalism functions. Those that are at best.
I don't give a shit. Anybody could make it anywhere. It all depends on what you want to do. Nobody has a better privilege than the other person. I do not see it.
Wow, bloody hell, Neil. I had no idea you were this idealistic.
I don't see it. I just don't. You could freaking work at McDonald's if you put your money away. Now, that all depends what you do. Me, I partied as a teenager. I pay for it now. I got to work my ass off. But if I didn't, I would have saved and saved and saved because I was living home. I'd be set. I didn't find it important.
Well, and then you have the social net safety nets that are applied, which are necessary to give everyone that equal footing, or at least a fair footing to start their lives off.
My sister-in-law's kids have faced no racism at all. They're in Guyanese, Trinidad. They have faced nothing, yet they wanted to go out and march when all of that shit was going on. What did you face? It's the American dream.
How do you know they've faced no? How do you know that?
I know. What do you mean? I know. I see the way they live. They weren't stopped from getting a house.
You've seen the subtle sideways glances, and you've seen all of that while they're out and about through their eyes, have you?
Yep, seen it all. They haven't faced shit. I know the way that neighborhood works. Are you kidding me? You can't tell me nothing. They haven't. That's the bottom line.
Okay.
You need to watch the Hodge twins. You need to watch. I'm going to send you a couple of videos.
No,
watch their 2-3 minute videos.
I wish I hadn't got involved in the conversation.
No, I changed to flat earth then because I'll start getting pissed off.
If it wasn't for my deep-seated racist hatred of Italians, I wouldn't have got involved in it.
If you're not going to give it to me, I will take it. Come on, Nathan. You of all people should know. You could be whatever you want to be. It depends on how hard you're willing to work.
Maybe in the 70s or 80s that was true. That is not true anymore.
Tell me how.
Yeah,
tell me how.
Beautiful white people tend to do better, just the way it is.
No, that's not true either. It has nothing to do with your skin color. I'll tell you why. Because the value of the dollar has dropped.
I agree with that.
You could buy a car in the 70s for what? A new car.
That I agree with. I understand where you're going with that.
$5,000, $7,000.
Now, that's just the average price of that car. Everything will go up with that. So, how much has our wages increased since the 70s?
No, I'm with you there. It didn't increase much at all. Look at my trade, flooring. I remember when my father was doing it. By the yard, he was getting maybe $3 a yard, $4 a yard. That's what they're getting today. Maybe $5, $6 a yard. So if you do 100 yards of carpet, you get $600. And you got to break your ass to do 100 yards of carpet a day.
Right. So, and then you have the marketplace, which is technically a workers' market at this moment, but they're falsely changing the market through the news so that they don't have to pay people more, because there's more people retiring than entering the workforce. So it's a workers' market, but we're not getting paid anymore for it because of the false information that they feed people.
Yep. And that's your 2% that have all the money in the world.
Well, I think it's just a consortium of corporations that realize that the minute that people figure out what they're actually worth in this market, that they'll have to pay. So I don't necessarily think it's 2% of society. I think it's just rich people understand how the market works.
Tell you what I've noticed as well, though, some of the youth today, I mean, I've always worked. I was taught to work hard and put the hours in and all that. But I've noticed a lot of the younger guys and girls now, they want to do like part-time work, 16 hours a week. I don't know. I mean, it seems to have just changed a little bit like that. They're not interested in working and earning a lot of money. They just want to do little as possible and get by, I think.
I can relate to
Probably
that.
because what
Yeah, I
John
can
is
totally
saying.
relate to that. You know, working to live rather than living to work. Spending the majority of your time experiencing life, even on a very tight budget, is better, in my opinion, having done both, than having no time and having all the money in the world. I've been rich, I've been a rep, travelling around getting paid well, with an expense account, being able to buy anything I wanted. Literally. But I had no time. Which would I rather? I'd rather be now. I'd rather be at the end of the show e-begging for PayPals like I did yesterday, going, God, it's tight at the moment, than being in a position where the bank balance wasn't a particular concern, but what time did I have to spend with it? And at the moment, it would be 0 time with the kids. Well, sod that. I'd rather be poor. Yeah, it's embarrassing to have to e-beg in this particular job that I'm doing, but it'd be different ways of getting ends to meet if I was in a different job part-time, which it was when I was on the delivery driving job. That was a part-time job, admittedly to transition into this full-time, but nevertheless, you know, I could totally understand people who want to do that, because life's short. Time is far more valuable. There's a lot you can do for nothing.
Yeah.
So Nathan, hold on a second. Why do you not say that when people pass the remark that you're a delivery boy? Why don't you say, yo, jerk off, I'm a delivery boy transitioning to YouTuber. I was a rep. I traveled the world, moron.
Because then they've won, because then their strawman hit home beautifully, hasn't it? Oh, you delivery driver. What I would reply with is, meanwhile, you can't acquire an elevation angle from a curved sphere Earth surface. It needs to be flat to do that. Well, you're a delivery driver. It's like, I tried to explain this to you yesterday when they were talking about, at no point did, well, he did, that's a lie. Not very much did QE, labour the point that it wasn't true when they were calling him a cook. It doesn't matter, though. Who cares? It doesn't make any difference. I even flipped the situation and said I don't care what rant he is. It doesn't matter what he is. What matters is, does he have a rebuttal to our argument? No. Oh well, and he's got nothing to offer. Has he offered any arguments and claims, oh yeah, he's offered them and they need flat earth to make them work? That's what I'll be pointing out when people call me a delivery boy.
I'll say it then. I'll defend you.
For what? My own ego?
I just like to set people straight. I'm about truth. If you're going to say something, at least say the truth.
But it's the
Don't
truth
just
about
pick
me.
out what you want.
Okay, I am the same as I said about Ranty yesterday, but one man, Neil. So, let's say we spend 25 minutes on the truth about Nathan. Well, what was that achieved? The record set straight about one guy. Yeah, people think I'm a terrible person, Neil, because I tell them that the Earth's flat and keep them on track with the conversation about that subject. And when they try and skirt round the issue, obfuscate, completely change the subject, I'll bring them back to the subject, which they've lost. Earth's not a sphere. While they pummel my personal life in whatever way they see fit, to not have to argue about the fact we haven't got a sphere beneath our feet. So, I don't care. People can call me what they like.
Yeah, think of it this way. The truth, which truth bothers them more? Whether he was or was not a delivery boy, in their words, or that the Earth's flat.
Which is easy to argue. Which is easier to argue about? Whether or not it's personally negative towards me as an individual who is disseminating the information about Earth being flat? Or is it easier to argue about whether or not Earth's flat? Here and now in this particular platform. It's easier to just ad hom, Neil. Far easier. And when someone like yourself latches onto it and goes, I want to set that record straight. Okay, fine. Just do it quickly, because I don't care. It's water off a duck's back after 7 years or 8 years or however long I've been doing this now, Neil. Been called all the names under the sun. I've had all sorts of stories made up about me. Only recently, I had one guy who's from the Flat Earth side. I can't remember the name of his channel to plug him, otherwise I would. Saying I was a Freemason. I left him a comment. I'm not a Freemason. And he picked out a shot where I'm pointing to the horizon and saying it's flat to Vice Media. And in one screenshot, you've got me in this particular, more like Usain Bolt. You know, and Usain Bolt does that thing. Well, a bit more like that. But he's taken that and compared it to the Freemasonic arm out level with your chest, which a lot of people over in the States, I don't know about here, but certainly do to say Earth is flat. They use the same sign. And he's linked those two things together and said they're Freemasons because they use this sign. Now, I have no idea. Half those people I don't know personally. And I think I'd probably vouch for Dave Weiss not being a Freemason because I know him pretty well. But other than that, I have no idea if they're Freemasons, nor do I care. That's the point. Now, in that instance, I did set him straight with a one sentence. No, I'm not a Freemason. That was a screenshot taken from me pointing at the horizon. But
what does it matter if you're a Freemason?
Doesn't.
What if I am?
It doesn't matter. Sean Atwood, do you know who he is? He was on a show here in Britain called Banged Up Abroad. He was over in the States selling ecstasy and various other drugs. And he got caught, got thrown in high security, maximum Securimax, whatever they call it, for a whole bunch of time. And he's got a whole load of stories that he disseminates about his time in jail. Yep, Sean Atwood. Relatively well-known YouTuber. Anyway.
Hold on, is that the guy that hooked up with Sammy the Bull Gravano? Is that the same guy? And he was in Arizona?
I don't bloody know his drug-dealing career. I don't know that bit. It's not relevant to my story. My story is specific to the fact that he has done things wrong and been locked up for them, and he's currently disseminating Flat Earth. Does that mean that while his celebrity is purely based on his wrongdoing and jail time, that anyone's going to pay any less or more information to arguments that he disseminates? Well, I would answer absolutely. Once he manages to step his foot into the arena, he'll find out very quickly that no one will listen to the arguments that he's got, cogent or otherwise. They'll say, you're just a criminal. Because they've got nothing to respond to him with.
What's his name?
Sean Atwood. So he's currently getting videos posted about him because he presumably opened his door to flat earthers to let them disseminate their information to him. So I've seen Mark Sargent and Dave and a couple of others who have been on the show with him, presumably to tell him about Flat Earth, and they've just trimmed him out and put it on his own channels. Now, I happen to be subscribed anyway to Sean Atwood. I just didn't notice any of this going on until Dave published it on Dave Talks 2. I think it's the name of his channel that he puts out little trimmed out sections where he does those sorts of things. So DITRH, that is. So that's where I caught up with that. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. I like Sean Atwood. He's an interesting character. So for him to be talking about this means he's going to be breathing a bit of life into it in an area of the internet that it currently wasn't. Well, brilliant. No objections there. My point is, though, when he does that, there's going to be people from this anti-flat earth side that we encounter that will just ad hom him. They'll just say, oh, yeah, you're just a criminal, though, aren't you?
That is him. He hooked up with Sammy the Bull Gravano. I know who you're talking about.
Well, the thing is like, if you really wanted to mess with them and they say Nathan's a delivery boy, you could always just say, well, he's a delivery boy with an argument you can't beat.
Exactly. That's the sentiment. A delivery boy with an argument you can't overcome. Does it matter if I'm a grave digger? My brother was a grave digger for a while when he was trying to raise money to go cycling all over the States. So he cycled from the north to the south of Central America. Or North America, my bad. And in so doing, he had to get all sorts of crazy jobs in the process of getting there. One of which was gravedigger. Does it matter? He just needed money to get a ticket. Who cares what he did? Doesn't make any difference if he suddenly stands here, my brother that is, and says, the Earth's flat because you can't get an elevation angle from a curved adjacent. Must have a flat Earth.
Yes, I know.
Oh, well, you just dig up graves, dead people to go in. So?
They're looking for consensus. I know that.
Well, no, it's about what you're looking for. Like, you don't want someone coming to this subject, seeing that and dismissing him offhand, right?
No, I just don't like it when they say those things. That's all. Personally, I don't like how they do that. They're lying, first of all. Tell the truth. You can't get around the argument.
They're not lying.
So now
you gave an example of me, and you said if they say you're a delivery driver, okay, yeah, I was.
They're not telling the full truth.
That is the truth. What are you talking about? There's no lie there.
How come they left out the part where you were a rep that had no money worries at all?
Maybe they didn't know. Who cares? The point of their attack isn't because they really want to get my history right, my employment history right. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to ad hom, i.e. a fallacy where you ignore the argument in favour of attacking the person personally. The person disseminating the argument you haven't overcome.
And
But
if they've not
they're just
addressed
showing
the
how sad
argument,
they are as well, aren't they? They're showing how sad they are. That something, you know, that bothers them, or they'll use that to try and, as if it's going to bother you. You know, and it doesn't matter, does it? It doesn't actually matter. But that's how low they'll try and go.
That's easy to overcome. I mean, I really kind of felt like Thanos when I went to my community of friends. Uh, we met on the internet, and we met like 40 deep on the beach one day, and that's how I got to know these people. It grew to like hundreds, and so that was a little ecosystem. And one day I decided to, talk to them and say, "Hey, uh, I don't think the moon landing happened." But by the time I met Nathan, I got the confidence to go, "Yeah, it's definitely not a globe." And they tried to ridicule me. They tried to, yeah. Well, what do you know? What do you know? You you
Hello.
just have a regular job. You're not a scientist. You're not this. You're not that.
But
And
that's their false
it
understanding of what
showed,
science is.
but it showed with the other people in the room who were trying to determine. And this is important.
Oh,
The
went quiet
people
there for
who
some time.
actually care, the people who actually care about the who's right and who's wrong, the spectators who are watching to see who has the better argument. Those are the people who hit me up in the background and said, "You know what? It's crazy. Half the room was against you, but they didn't actually address any of the arguments that you brought up, like at all. All they did was call you dumb, this, that, and the third. But then you're pulling resources and you're showing them, look, this is what it says right here." And it was very weak of them to not address you. See, if I would have addressed their tactics, that would have never happened. And that's what the anti-flat earthers want. And you don't want that, to give them what they want.
well, it's telling in itself, like if I say something and someone calls me a idiot that used to work at McDonald's when, because I worked at McDonald's as a kid. That's telling in itself because they're having trouble. That's the reason they went there. If they could answer it, they would.
And that the truth, they would answer if they could. So there's no need for an ad hominem attack. And if you really want to call someone stupid, it's far more effective for you to demonstrate their argument incorrect and then call them stupid for making the argument. I contextualise your personal attack on them after you've shown an example of why they would be classified as stupid in this example.
Yeah, this is a pretty rough arena. You gotta have a thick skin for it, don't you?
Yeah, you have. You've got to have a very thick skin to brace against any current religion. Throughout history, people who brace against the religion of the time aren't treated very well. And so, you go into this knowing that, and you go, okay, well, I've got a choice. I don't have to push the alternative to the lie that's being disseminated. I could take the ranty flat earth approach, right? I could just switch sides. It'd be far more profitable.
Well, it's kind of funny now because of the direction the debates went in, especially realizing the origins of the globe. it's almost like there's not a debate to be had, but just a discussion of delusion about what is.
Or how we got here. It becomes an interesting discussion in terms of, well, at what point did we have Earth curve introduced where we formerly had dip corrections to account for horizontal with the same mathematics? Well, when we saw that from flat Earth data, admittedly being shouted down by QE while he presented it, I was absolutely fascinated. It's nice to know where these lies have come from and how they've been, put into effect. But you're right, it does seem like there isn't an argument anymore, but obviously we're sat at the tip of the spear, knowing there isn't an argument anymore. But evergreen subject for me, as far as I'm concerned, until the entirety of the Western world understands and appreciates that they've either been lied to or that the Earth is appreciably flat, I've still got a YouTube career. Admittedly with ridicule attached to it until that's the case, because that's how this particular game's been laid out on the battlefield. I knew that when I entered into it.
I sometimes wonder to myself, why did I get to, like, why was it I got into flat Earth? Why did I realise the Earth was flat? I mean, I've got a lot of people around me who don't. I just think to myself, why was that? What was the reason? Is there a reason? Is it only certain people who are going to realise it, or what?
Certain people that want to adhere to the status quo of societal standards. My father's one of them. He was vigilant in his tax returns, vigilant in his business operations, squeaky clean in every aspect of his life, did everything the government ever told him. I say that because he's retired, not because he's dead. He isn't. But the point is that at the end of that, you go, okay, well, what did that serve you in some way? Did you get a pat on the back for it? What did it actually achieve? I'm not saying you should not do those things, but I'm just saying that by being 100% squeaky clean and wanting to go in line with the status quo, if that includes the religion of the Western world, that would be heliocentrism, then you're going to stand by it in the same way you stand by the decency of the portrayed government narrative, in whatever vein that may be.
But isn't that like being lukewarm?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I at least appreciate the anti-flat earthers that tried to argue. I mean, it's kind of fruitless now, but at least they're standing for something, even if they're wrong.
What is that admirable?
Standing for something?
Well,
Yeah.
when it's wrong. Not just wrong,
so.
demonstrably wrong. We can show it and do show it to them daily. But you think even on the side of the losing battle, it's admirable to keep standing for something that's wrong?
I don't.
I think it's there's something admirable about it. I don't necessarily think it's a moral or ethical position to take, but there is something that I like about that.
At least there's some fight in them.
Yes, exactly.
I see. Well, fair enough. I don't consider myself a fighter, but there we go.
There's no fight in them because they don't come here. Let me tell you something. They're about, I'd say I counted on Gems the other day, there's about 50 people on his Discord server. And all of the usual suspects that once were here. Chaiki, Unorthodox, all of them. They're all over there. They found their nice little safe ground. And that's where they stay. Stroking each other's ego.
Good for them.
Well, could they say the same about us?
Probably.
Well, have they defeated any of our
because
arguments?
I go everywhere.
They can't say the same.
Hold on.
I've been to Brandon's. I got them to say that they don't mention 90. I've been to I've been to Gym Pandas and was able to because he's not able to stop straw manning you. He had to concede every time he tried to straw man me. Doesn't know anything about refraction. Everywhere I go, it's painfully evident that they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Um, so I definitely do lead the charge in other places.
Well, there you go.
Because every now and again I go pick a fight too. I can't help it.
Yeah, I just go lurk in there, wait for them to say something that I'm ready to object to, and off to the races.
And I get it. You know, you, as you put it, want to pick a fight. I don't particularly.
No, I was addressing the idea that this might be an echo chamber. That's all I was saying.
How could it be an echo chamber? We don't agree on everything.
As far as I've been able to tell, we agree on one thing.
Yeah, well, Earth is flat, and yeah, the elevation angle we agree on.
So there's
Not
that.
Not really agree, disagree subject. It kind of
Yeah,
is.
that's fact.
Yeah, it just is what it is. It is using angles. You can't have a curve. That's not agree, disagree.
Good point. So we don't agree on anything then.
No, that's kind of true.
I was just having a discussion with a guy about the black swan photos. It was going back and forth, and I basically said to him, "Well, it's your, you shouldn't be able to see them rigs at the distance they're at. That's your claim." And he turned around to me and said, "That's what all flat earthers say. The globe has never claimed that." I mean,
Oh
it's
yeah,
ridiculous.
that's
Oh yeah. So what he's saying is, what you're saying is that you deny. You get to the point where they have to deny their claim in the first instance because you've proven it wrong. So you point out that the horizon called Earth curve claimed to be blocking things and being capable of measuring how much it's blocking them by is out beyond the limits of the geometry that they're claiming in that instance. You point that out and they go, the globe's never claimed physical geometric Earth curve edge obstruction at the bottoms of boats and buildings. We've never claimed that. Now that you've shown me that that can't be the case. You're like, no, you have. Here it is in your calculator.
no.
It's
They
right
claim
there. It's
that
right there.
my son
It's
does
right
that
there.
too.
Neil first, Eli. Hold on.
Son says the same thing. I never agreed to that number. 3959. He never agreed to it. That's not his claim.
But to them, it's not agree, disagree either.
It says it right there in the navigational books,
Oh,
you know.
it's back
And
to
then when mariners explain, they go, "Hey, this is part of the complicated math that you don't really actually have to learn or do as a beginner. You could just focus on the simple stuff like how you just have a line of sight to the GP and you just make sure you get that sextant rocking, so you get it just right level with the horizon, and then you measure the angle of elevation." But
That's
if
Yeah,
you
the
want to
easy
do
part,
the
the flat Earth
true.
part.
Hold on, Eli.
advanced stuff, then you have to have a geometric horizon.
Right, but I think you're absolutely right. But I think John's point was slightly different. He was saying where we point out that it's not agree, disagree when you measure an angle. You can't have a curve with one of those lines. They've got to both be straight. Well, that's not agree, disagree. But he's saying in their mind's eye, 3959 radius value sphere beneath your feet isn't agree, disagree either. It just is as far as they are concerned.
That's how measurements work.
Yeah.
Well, I had somebody
This
tell
is
me
a
they weren't understanding the fact that a sphere has no flat surfaces. This went on for about 20 minutes, how he's trying to explain to me that, no, you don't understand. Earth is so big, there is flat surfaces there. You're not using the sextant right.
Right. That's ridiculous. But the thing is measurements aren't agree disagree. Right. And they think the Earth has been measured. So why would they tell you they disagree with the measurements of Earth?
Because
that
they're
makes no
arguing.
sense, does it?
I was going to say that earlier to Eli. They're arguing with celestial navigation at that point. They're not arguing with us. It's not in contention whether or not they use straight flat baselines to measure elevation angles. They do. So then it comes down to, well, how are you going to apply that on a flat Earth? No, that's how it's done. So if you want to argue the toss about how celestial navigation is performed, or, by contrast, how you perform a measurement of Earth, that's geometry, Earth curve edge being their geometry, then it's not agree, disagree. You just measure a measurement if you have one to measure. If you don't, you can't because you haven't.
I think that's why the sextant used at sea is a good one, because obviously you're on the ocean. There's no construction out there, which is flat level surfaces which has been constructed. Using the sea level, it's a natural sea level, and there's no getting out of that.
Well, there's no getting out of the first step in this whole process, which is measurement of an elevation angle. Second step is getting 90 degrees, right? You want 90 degrees to meet the bottom so you can do the calculations to actually perform the following functions. But it all starts with measuring an elevation angle, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
Step 1, get angle. Is that curved line along the bottom out towards whatever star you're measuring, potentially thousands of miles away? No, it's later going to be described parallel to your position with 90 degrees below it. And the line that you're using to it is a straight line. None of this works with sphere Earth. Can't work. So step 1, measure flat Earth. That's what celestial navigation does. Not agree, disagree, that is what it does. Them telling us that we don't understand that there's no flat planes on a sphere, it's all spherical, but it's so big that it's all flat. It makes absolutely no difference. What are you actually doing with the tool? You're measuring a straight flat line? Yeah, that's right. Potentially out to 5,000 miles away underneath the star that you're measuring. Yeah, that's a big flat expanse that you must have to do this. Does it matter whether or not you tell me I don't understand that your entirety of a sphere can never be flat, but is simultaneously so big that it's all flat? It's still not going to give you a flat baseline. It's a sphere. It can't give you that. You must use it flat. It's not agree, disagree. Earth must be flat to do celestial navigation. And celestial navigation isn't in contention, despite the fact that our opponents want to make it in contention and label it as flat earthers method. It isn't.
Right, and the optical error of the tool has nothing to do with the dimension you are measuring, just for those people that want to hug onto that.
Yeah, I've seen that in comments too, anti-flat earthers. Makes no difference, you're doing geometry. You're doing it with a straight flat baseline.
I mean, that's it, really, isn't it? That's all. It's over, really. That's if you just stick to that. That's it. I mean, it's done. You don't have to go anywhere else or talk about any other thing. That's
Correct.
it.
That's right. You draw a stop, a full stop at the end of that statement. You draw a line under it. And if the opponent on the anti-flat earth side wants to go any further in the discussion, they have to do so under the premise that they've just measured an angle off a flat earth. Now, for me, I don't really need to learn any of the other arguments attached to this as much as they're going in because I have to listen to them. 10th Man typically would be here by now giving us a presentation on how it all works. But I haven't gone out of my way to learn that stuff once I understood the principle that the first step is measuring a flat earth angle. Oh, right. And John keeps summarising it on every single live show. So it's ball foo. The moment you enter into this discussion, you're accepting that you're measuring a flat earth angle. The second you do anything. So who cares about the rest of the argument from that point forward? You don't need anything else. Don't need to know anything. Just need to know that. So you're now asking me how that angle, measured from a flat earth, works on a flat earth? Oh, yeah. I don't think I need to answer that, do I, Dumbo?
Yeah, that angle that can only be acquired from planar geometry is not on planar geometry.
Exactly. I've seen that argued in the
They keep
comments too, where they start describing how it's working with spherical trig. It's like you've taken a planar trig measurement of an angle. What the hell are you babbling about? So once you've got your angle in planar trig, you're going to tell us that it's all working on a spherical measurement if you put it at the centre. Yeah, you'll be putting that measurement at the centre of an equatorial plane. That'll be a flat surface as it must be to get the angle. And then assuming that you're standing in the middle of your rock that you're not measuring. So that doesn't work. What does work is angle measurements on the surface which are flat.
Spherical trig don't
Xenic
work. What
still
is spherical
insists that
trig?
nothing. Xenic still insists that there are no triangles, and he and a few others insist that the 90 starts with you. They think that the 90-degree box begins where you are.
That's fine. Well, hold on.
That's what they
It doesn't matter. That's supplementary to the point. They're admitting a 90, and they don't have a tangent anymore to make their 91 degree or 90 plus assertion. All there is the 90.
And when they assert that the calculation that corrects is correcting to a tangent, because obviously we have refraction, you can point out that they don't have their refraction on a sphere anymore because that was based on R.
Well, even if you use that refraction, which is fine, go ahead, you still have the curved adjacent problem.
Exactly. Then you can't get an elevation angle because you're inferring after you've acquired one. In other words, you can go through all these steps after the fact, can't you? Talking about tangents, talking about refraction for tangents, talking about correcting to horizontal from a sphere Earth dip. Correcting what? We've just measured an angle on a flat Earth, haven't we? Let's whistle past that and talk about how we're going to correct it from a tangent. No. An elevation angle in and of itself is a flat Earth angle measurement. Can't get around that.
Yeah, you don't acquire angles from curved surfaces. That's ridiculous.
Good morning.
Morning.
See Slide the Master B.
I didn't, but we'll just round out the chit-chat we were having. It's a concise end to the argument, actually. You know, as much as I liked the demolition of the ball that is the Black Swan, it was never a flat Earth proof. You could infer it one step further on, very easily, but I don't like that. I like it to be nice and neat. And in the case of the elevation angle argument, it is nice and neat. You're asserting with proof that the Earth is flat, demonstrably and necessitated by the method. It can't not be flat. I like that. It's tidy. Got your slide up lines of position.
Tidy. Nice word. Especially when we're in the ocean. Much tidiness. If someone said you were 2,400 miles from Paris and 1,800 miles from New York, you would be in one of two places where those lines of position cross. An LOP can be based on anything, a navigation aid, a landmark, or the geographic position of a star. So here you see Paris to the right, New York to the left, the zenith positions, and the circle of equal altitudes. And there's two crossings. You're at one of those two, unless you do a third, and then you would find your fix precisely at one. But you would know where you are here because of the previous day's log. But here's your circle of equal altitude. A circle is a two-dimensional, not three-dimensional. That's why they call it circle. And you have a radius that allows you to have the 2,400 miles and the 1,800 miles. So this is just a nice picture of sharing what we've shared before.
Yeah, very good. It can only be flat to achieve this, and the distances involved are thousands of miles of flat Earth in order to have 90 degree at New York to one of these two positions and 90 degree to Paris at one of these two positions.
Would that be a right angle?
Yeah, you've got to have a right angle here. Underneath the star at Paris, there's a right angle for you to do this calculation. And that's going to meet either here, or here, at 90 degrees to both of these two positions, potentially, because one of them is where you are actually. Now, you might need a third, as 10th detailed, but further to that, in the opposite direction, you've got thousands of miles to New York with 90 degree at the bottom of the star. Back to your position along a flat, straight baseline. It can't be anything else between here, New York, and here. Or New York, 90 degrees, and here. That's what you're doing, figuring out where you are. Now, you would hope that you're in the ocean and there's some land over one of the positions, and you go, well, that rules that out, and you don't need to do a third one. But if this is open ocean and this is open ocean, and you know what, you've got to do a third position, because then when you do 90 degrees to this star over here, with a 90-degree box and a flat baseline, you're going to find out which of the two it is, because your line of position will only cross at one of these two locations, making your position, if it was lining up here, 90 degrees to the star you've measured for the third and final position reading. So that's it. Can't not be flat. It must be flat.
So, Nathan, my next image, if you would show in Master B, I just posted it. You mean this 90-degree right angle that doesn't seem to fit in the curved surface?
Not bad scale-wise either. This is reasonable. Over here we've got Paris down here. Over here we've got New York somewhere over here. So you've got, a fair old chunk of distance to make it comparable. Actually, no, it's probably about 50% too big. But you know what I'm getting at. The comparison works down here in this area. Indeedy, none of it would work. You'd have diverging zeniths for each of the stars. So this star won't meet at 90 degrees to your position because there's a curve in the way. Doesn't work anymore. Has to be flat. New York, Paris have to be on the same elevation. Flat. Good slides, as ever, 10th.
Oh, yes, they'll be coming more and more. This is part of a sequence of presentations soon to come. Yeah, I'm afraid it's over for these guys. Been over for these guys. Now it's really over for these guys. I like what John wrote. Tangent is defined while standing on the Earth's surface. It's refracted, flat-tard, except at the very second you need a local horizon. Thank you, Celestial Navigation. Welcome to Flat Earth.
Yeah, 2 years of saying it's refracted is the spike in the pit I described yesterday. Suddenly they want to yank their own leg off to decry the fact that they've got bent lines always. Straight line, straight line. What's that? Why are you missing a leg? Did you just tear yourself out of a pit of screaming refraction deniers? I think you did, didn't you? That's why you've got no leg to come here and tell me that you've still got straight line. No, you haven't. Can you not hear the pit with lots of people all screaming refraction? You know, is that a distant memory? What about your leg that you're missing? What about that? Is that not a reminder of you barking refraction for the last 2 straight years? Clearly not. Just a flesh wound. They are kind of like zombies now, aren't they? We talk about them descending into madness. They do. I mean, I'm talking about them coming out from a horrific injury to act like the Black Knight and say it's but a flesh wound. Well, that's like The Walking Dead, isn't it? Zombies.
They don't have a leg to stand on, Nathan.
That's true.
Yeah, I think you stumped them.
That's true.
Stumped him. A leg to stand on.
They're looking for a new crutch, Nathan.
Of course.
Oh, he's going.
Maybe soon they can wheelie chair something new.
That was reaching, Ted. Why is my fire stick not working?
Wheelchair and wheelie chair, that was a stretch, man.
Insane.
Well, if we could just get past this flat plane, guys, we could understand how it gets here.
No,
You
let's not
guys,
get, no.
you guys are hung up on that.
It's a Neil bastard. Yeah, don't get hung up on that.
But that has to be the funniest, like, just unintentionally funny thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, that was.
If you could just get over the point of your argument where you win, you could understand.
No. The thing is, how do you say that to Nathan? think it's gonna skate by?
He is kind of like the Aldous Huxley of flat Earth, isn't he?
All that is the very simplistic. All that is the very simplistic methodology of acquiring an elevation angle, which will require a flat plane, and then holding your opponent to it, because all of their arguments will start with a flat Earth elevation angle. And if we can just move past that, we can argue all day about how the flat Earth elevation angle that they're using to argue proves a sphere. Shocking, isn't it? Or when John transposed that back onto his kitchen surface measured from flat Earth kitchen angles, how you can prove that kitchen's a sphere. Amazing, isn't it? You can do that all day. Now, I'd much prefer that they just concede, as he did when he was like, let's not get hung up on the fact that Earth must be flat for me to make any of these claims. Let's not get hung up on that. Yeah, that was all I wanted. And I got it. Because I focused on what we are actually arguing about. The angle measurement that must have a flat Earth to measure it. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this is of particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now we are joined by Neil, 10th Man, Adam Meakin, who's joining right in the middle of my introduction, of course. Who else did I miss? Refracted Curvature, Adam, 10th Man, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Hello.
Hello! Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve?
I hope that's not refracted.
Hello.
If it's refracted, it sure as hell isn't geometric.
They don't claim it.
Hold on.
Did you say they don't claim it's geometric, other than in the physical geometric sphere edge calculations that show it as a horizon marked with an X? Other than that, you mean? So, any evidence of Earth curve?
No, they claim Earth curve, but there's no evidence of Earth curve.
Fisheye lenses.
If there's no Earth curve, what are they lining their sextant up to?
The horizon. But we only have one horizon, and the horizon in there, begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator, was, open brackets, before it was debunked by the Black Swan, close brackets, geometric. Now it's not. It's, according to them, refracted, therefore not geometric. The horizon we use for the sextant gives you a tool on a boat that's moving all over the place of establishing horizontal.
Can you acquire an angle with a refracted line?
No, you cannot.
I know what the horizon is. I'm just referencing them as to what they say the horizon. Whilst, let's say, over the past year or so, that physical edge has disappeared. But it appears when they go and discuss celestial navigation, they're reifying it again, because that physical edge is the thing that they're adjusting to in their dip correction. They're making a positive statement that the horizon is the leading physical edge of a ball. That's why it's down, and that's why they're adjusting to it based on height.
They've also
they've
been
gone
told,
back.
Adam, that they're correcting it because it's refracted.
That physical edge.
Yeah, so their response has been to say, if we're doing dip correction because we're measuring from a geometric horizon, now I'm hijacking your point, so I'll just make it so it doesn't get lost. They can't have that Black Swan. There is no geometric horizon to be measuring with a sextant. But when I point out that Black Swan, the response has been, no, the dip correction is because we're dealing with refraction, i.e. a refracted horizon.
We went to great trouble to demonstrate that the dip correction matches the Earth curvature, affirming that it's an adjustment to a physical edge. There's no additional adjustment for refraction in there. The curve, as he demonstrates, matches his so-called Earth curve.
No, I appreciate they're pulling this out of their ass.
Well, they're contradicting themselves as they anti-flat Earth their answer.
Indeed.
It's not
if you're measuring with a sextant, you're not measuring something that's got a bent line, i.e. refracted, to correct to geometric tangent point when the correction makes it horizontal.
I was looking at the disclaimer before your show. It says that the flat Earth model is an archaic model that's been scientifically falsified. Just to leave the scientifically part out, but as an archaic model, I agree. And since the globe is a flat Earth model, isn't that a conundrum for them?
Yes, I agree entirely. Now, up until now, I've pointed out that as a model, if you're going to show a pizza pie from Flat Earth Society or an azimuthal equidistant projection and claim that's a model of Earth, that's pretty archaic way of thinking, or if it's come from a certain timeline, a pretty archaic way of perceiving things if you stereotype everybody who claimed to believe that at the time. So I agree, on principle, with the first half of the statement, ignoring the second half of science, which we may come back to when we ask that question in housekeeping. However, as John's just pointed out, the globe is a flat Earth model. The globe was created by use of flat Earth elevation angle measurements. Therefore, if the Wikipedia statement below my video, otherwise deemed the tramp stamp, is to be taken literally, they are saying that the flat Earth is an archaic model, and by extension, the globe which has been based on that must also be equally archaic. It's based on the flat Earth model they're poo-pooing when they say it's archaic. But your globes come from that. Your angle has come from a flat Earth, and you've used that to make a sphere in a model. Good point, John.
Well, words have meanings, and I find it interesting that they choose that, because it's a little bit of poison in the well. If you first read it, just skim read it, archaic, you think antiquated, wrong, incorrect, but it isn't. Archaic just means old. I've got it here, pulled it up here. Very old or old-fashioned. Now, the statement they use kind of makes my point for me. Doesn't mean the things are wrong. They're actually very correct. Prisons are run on archaic methods. Probably the best way to run a prison, using that old, well-tried and trusted method. It's an archaic. But to me, there's no negative intonation in the word archaic there, even though it's been used to provide that. But if you actually look at the word, it just supports its historicity. It's been around a long, long time.
Okay, well, it's saying this model of a flat Earth world has been around a long time, and here's where we have to branch into the full statement they make, has been disproven by science. Is that what it says, John? I haven't got it in front of me. We're branching into the science bit, John. He's obviously got his hands full. So...
Oh, I'm sorry.
What's the second half that we weren't going to get into? But Adam's essentially saying, because archaic only infers old-fashioned, it doesn't have any negative connotations until you get to the second statement.
Right, that's the scientifically falsified. Now, that's not true. We know that demonstrably, that it's never been scientifically tested. It's not even a question of why or how. It's a question of what is.
Yes. It's outside the purview of science on account of the fact that it's not dealing with a cause and effect relationship. You're not establishing what caused a phenomena in nature when you ask about a model that is claimed to be old-fashioned. This old-fashioned model's been disproven by systematic experimentation based on hypothesis, based on natural phenomena that you need to explain the cause of. Well, hold on. There is no natural phenomena. You're talking about an archaic model. Well, for number one, none of us here ascribe to models. They might be useful, they might be used, we might use them. What we don't do is reify them into our physical world. Therefore we can, and may, in time, along with other people side by side singing Kumbaya, realise the beauty of the heliocentric model and its usefulness. And we can awe in our beauty at how Earth could be thought of as being used antipodal underneath other people stood on the same surface. We will maybe look back at that beauty, but we do not reify that into our world. And when we look back with fond memories of the archaic globe that came from flat Earth elevation angle models, then we'll laugh. Or admire the beauty of the heliocentric model we're definitely not standing on.
Well, that's almost it. But the elevation angles didn't come from a model. They come from reality.
My bad. As soon as I said it, I realised, but I didn't correct myself.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was incorrect. Right, the flat Earth angle measurements that we're talking about are just angle measurements, taken from the surface. Don't need to preface it with flat Earth. It's implied because of the nature of measuring an angle. So I'm going to stop saying flat Earth angle measurement. It's just an angle measurement.
Where'd you learn that? On one of your deliveries?
No, there was no real need for triangulating my position when I was out delivering groceries, Neil.
Oh, okay.
I mean, had I have got lost, I probably wouldn't have reached for the spare sextant in the van, because there wasn't one.
What about when you were in the plane on one of your high rep jobs where you used to make a lot of money?
Yeah, it didn't really come up that the plane lost the ability to navigate and needed to use the backup sextant, and all of their thumbs had been removed, and I was the closest person sitting next to them that could operate that tool under their instruction at the time. That never happened.
Okay, good. But you see what I'm doing here, right?
Not really.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how you got through TSA with a bag of groceries.
I'm just wondering how all the pilots' thumbs would ever be removed so they couldn't use their sextant to take flat Earth elevation angle measurements to triangulate their location. Well, there we go there then. Any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle from a curved adjacent?
That's ridiculous. How would you, Nathan?
How would I what? Acquire an elevation angle from a curved adjacent? I wouldn't.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, but that's because you can't have a curved adjacent. You've got to have straight flat line to have 90 degrees in reference to a position that you're measuring. That would be a star in this instance. Well, that
But the
requires a flat Earth.
sextant works.
My bad. Go ahead, Neil.
But the sextant works. We're doing it on a globe, Nathan. The sextant works.
By taking flat Earth angle measurements, Neil.
It can still work. You know, the Earth doesn't have to actually measure like a sphere. As long as it seems flat, then the sextant works just fine.
Quite far from your mic, Arwin.
Yeah, a bit.
Well,
Are you being conceptual again, Arwen?
Well, no. He's saying it doesn't.
No,
have to,
logically
it doesn't
consistent.
not have to work on a sphere. That's what he's saying. It doesn't have to be functioning on a sphere. I'm just reversing what he said because he's reversed the negativity of his statement to make it confusing, as Arwin does sometimes. So it doesn't not have to work on a sphere. Yeah, it would have to work on a sphere if it was a sphere. It just doesn't because it isn't, and it does work on a flat plane because it is. There you go, Arwin. I can do that too.
No, that's not what I said. I said
Here we go.
it can work on a sphere as long as it doesn't seem like a sphere.
What?
It could, but it doesn't. Maybe it could in a game or something, but it doesn't in physical reality, Arwin. So your statement's kind of non sequitur. In fact, it is non sequitur.
No, he's saying if in reality it seemed like a sphere, which it doesn't, then you wouldn't be able to use a sextant, I think.
Exactly. But we
And
don't
you-
have to
hold on,
worry
then you
about
wouldn't.
that
Hold on.
because
If
it's
it was a
perfectly
sphere
flat.
and seemed like a sphere, which it isn't, then you wouldn't be able to use a sextant. Well, I completely
Yes.
agree.
Right, but it doesn't seem like a sphere, right? It seems flat, so it works just fine, even though it is a sphere.
Because it seems
That's a
so
non
flat.
sequitur.
No, it seems so flat, which leaves you with the problem of having to measure an angle with something that, according to you, is looking flat, but ultimately only looking flat because it's all a bent line. Well, at which point, if you point the tool at the horizon, your statement, which is ultimately what the black swan... I know where this is going, Arwin. We did this 2 days ago. Anyway, let's get to the end of the statement. Paradoxically speaking, you're going to refract the horizon to a position that's non-geometric, or in this case, making it look flat, in quotes. Yeah? And saying, because it looks flat, I can kind of use this tool that measures straight lines with a line that is actually all bent to look flat. No, the tool just measures straight lines. If they're all bent, regardless if it looks all flat or all looks concave, it matters not when the tool is actually just measuring a straight line, Arwin. That's what it actually does.
No, it does matter whether it looks flat, concave, or like a sphere, because it can only work when it looks flat.
Not looks. You're doing
Yes,
maths
looks.
with straight lines and right angles. What it looks
that's-
like is irrelevant when you apply the maths to it. Then you're just doing...
Sorry,
Oh, God.
I'm not talking about math. You're bringing in math. I'm talking about the observational instrument, right? So it must appear flat. That's where you get the data. What you do mathematically afterward is your business.
Yeah, this
But no, you're
appearing nonsense. It doesn't matter what it appears like when you're doing the geometry. It doesn't matter if it appears anything. What matters is how is it applied and whether or not it works. How it is applied is flat.
You take your reading from the optical instrument with a flat plane. That doesn't mean that it is actually a flat plane geometrically, but it only has to be flat optically because that's the nature of the instrument.
That's a contradiction in terms. No, it does mean it would be flat because it wouldn't work if it wasn't. So you saying, well, just because it looks flat and functions flat doesn't mean it is flat? I know you're packaging up what they're currently saying in comments as stupid as it is, Arwin, and I'm grateful to it. But no. If it walks like a duck and chucks like a duck, it's a duck.
Or a goose.
Hold on.
Or a swan.
Hold on. Well, he's got something, but it's using an optical instrument to measure an angle. You're then applying that angle geometrically. If it's got a curved baseline, it's not an angle. It's just nonsensical.
No, but you first use the optical instrument. It's going to be subjected to bending of light thanks to 7/6R. And then after you've done the optical measuring, that's when you start to apply the math. And then you have to get in the real geometry. That's where the spherical geometry gets in. That's where the R value actually hits the home run, right? That's where it integrates with the actual geometry.
No, black swan.
That's when you... Well, hold on. That's when you invoke the geometry that you just denied.
Exactly, black swan.
No, you're turning it all around.
Don't, Arwin. Now, either I've got two choices here, audience. Arwin's won because John just bit. Now, I know Arwin knows that, so I've got a couple of choices. He'll moan if I don't acknowledge that, won't you, Arwin?
I might.
Yeah, you will. Or I can do the right thing, which is to point out Arwin really wants to go round in circles with his own paradox that he's named Arwinian paradox. That would be to say, if you can't measure a geometric horizon, that's a physical Earth curve edge claimed to be our Earth curve horizon, then you can't get R from it. And if you can't get R from it, you can't refract it to a non-geometric position, refracted, because you haven't got R to do it with. But Arwin likes to ignore all of the mathematics, but phrase it around that concept until someone bites. Because then it can go round and round and round as long as his heart to his heart's content.
Right, it's kind of like fishing for globers.
Yeah, but you caught me out 2 days ago, and that's when I told you I was triggered, because I realised what you'd done after you got it going. You got the paradox going round and round in circles, and it becomes like a little snowball. Once you've got that snowball going, right, you can keep it rolling down that hill until it smashes up something. Smashing up something being me getting irritated or having to spend 5 minutes like I am now pointing out the Arwinian paradox. But you get mentioned a lot, so I'm sure you like it.
Exactly, it's a win-win scenario.
I know it's win-win for you, Arwin.
Hold on.
Arwin's
no.
got circles of unequal altitudes.
No, this goes past the Arwinian paradox because it doesn't deal with the horizon. If the horizon is Earth curve, refracted or not, you can't acquire an elevation angle.
Correct. Always bring it back to that first point.
Right, that's the geometry he was denying.
Well, you can't in the geometry, right? The geometry is a problem, right? Because things aren't where they seem to be.
There's where the end of the argument comes. Perfect. Thank you, Arwin. So you can't get the geometry. Well said. Their geometry is Earth curve geometry, though, isn't it, Arwin?
Yeah.
So you can't measure Earth curve geometry. There is no Earth curve. You can't measure it. That's the end of the argument. I mean, that is where we take one step further from the black swan. And I said earlier, I like it. It's a good way of proving that the Earth is flat. But ultimately, it's one step beyond the actual assertion in modus tollens. So it's not as tidy to assert the Earth's flat after the black swan argument. You can, and we do frequently, don't get me wrong. But...
No, but hold on. Technically, you can measure the geometry, but you have to funnel it
don't give me
through
this. I was in the middle of a
observation.
summary, and he's just... John summarised that point. No, you can't. You've denied it. That's the point. Don't rumpus me with the same bloody point. That is going to annoy me, sincerely annoy me, as opposed to annoy me for the drama of people getting the point. We got that bit, Arwin. John just addressed it. Do you need him to do it for a second time? Might be worth it anyway. Go ahead, John. If you're there. If not, I'll carry on.
If the horizon is refracted or not, either way, that means that your adjacent is curved and you can't acquire an angle.
Right, and his geometry is a tangent. Arwin, you can't measure the geometry of a sphere Earth at that point. That's the point. Just say I know. I know you know, and I know you know I know you know.
No. No,
Yes!
that's wrong. No, it's wrong. You can measure it within optics. You just can't calculate it within the geometry.
Right, I'm going to settle
But you
my
can
Mason
still
friends on
measure
here.
it with optics.
Can we move on?
Measure
Any
it
evidence of
flat.
the distance to the sun?
I don't know where it is, but it's not over there right now.
Well,
Right,
if you had a
it's for me.
flat plane, if you had a flat plane and you had an elevation angle to it, you could assert a sphere and then get a distance.
Yeah, you'd need flat Earth angle like measurements though first. No, that's no good. That's not giving me a distance to the sun. That's saying if I measure an angle to a body I don't know the height of, and then infer it with the trig I use when I take that angle, and then use it as a distance on the ground, then I've got a 3,000 mile or 93 million mile if I insert an R value to that angle measurement I took off a flat plane. And that's a justifiable distance to the sun, John? I think not.
Well, no, because it invokes that error within the reasoning, right?
Yeah, I don't
Can't
want
be a flat
errors.
plane in a sphere.
I want an actual distance to the sun. I mean, I'm glad you said it in a way because sometimes we lose track of why we ask these questions, right? The monotony of asking them and not getting any answers because there aren't any, right? But why do I ask for the distance to the sun? Well, it's very pertinent at the moment, isn't it? Because part of the straw man they need when we've been handed down a flat Earth model with an actual ascribed height of a sun, Protothad might have done a lot better. Let's just consider this for a second. Let's say none of us realised that we've been duped into a false dichotomy when we were handed a azimuthal equidistant projection with the sun and moon moving over the top of it, right? We didn't know that. And Protothad got here and started asking us, right, given that you have got a height of this sun at 3,000, this trig doesn't work anymore. When I double the angle, it doesn't give you the exact distance across the surface anymore. Would that have worked? I suppose it would. Or if you put it to other flat earthers that had the same model affliction, it would actually work if they understood the argument. Because they're in a position, if they're honest, where they have to defend their height of the sun, don't they? Am I wrong? No, Nathan, we all agree. Oh, wow, I'm glad I'm making some coherent points today.
Just reiterate it. I was pondering because I weren't fully grasping it.
Okay. I ascribe a height to the sun based on flat Earth presuppositions and false dichotomy models I've been given when I got here. I understand how celestial navigation works in terms of acquiring the angle and that giving you a distance on the ground. Once Protothad arrives with that circumstance in place, with me ascribed to a model of a flat Earth with a height of the sun, and he says, given your height of your measured angle, we've got all sides of this triangle, but it fails when I do the calculation from your height of your sun. You follow, Adam?
Yeah, this is...
So, would that have worked if I was in a position where I had to defend my height of my sun that I'd inferred?
Yes and no, I'd say. This is what I'm saying. This is one of those points where they try to make it our weak point, but the reality is it's also a very weak point in their model. Yeah, just because they got a distance, but they actually have to validate that distance, and it's that validation. The sun's one thing, but the stars are the other. And then for their model to be working mathematically, it just becomes impossible, doesn't it? Because all those stars have got different distances. We can't use geometric trigonometry. We have to use celestial navigation and its methodology to divine a side length. But what it doesn't do is divine a height. It remains, via the mechanism of celestial navigation, an apparent position. It's never defined in the calculations. Just an arbitrary point where things are calculated from, but its actual position is never needed because it doesn't exist.
And that model is a flat Earth model, though, right?
That is, yes. That's a two-planar model based on different ways of measuring distances on the surface and the sky.
So it's a flat Earth globe model versus a flat Earth model.
No, because the flat Earth model, that double positive isn't necessary because the methodology is implicit in terms of what it does as a function. You don't have to. I said it earlier in the show, or in the pre-show, I forget. Why say a flat Earth angle measurement? It's just an angle measurement, isn't it?
It's when you try to model that out to ascribe a height to the sun, is what I'm saying. That's when it becomes a flat Earth model.
Yeah, okay, I got you. To be fair, that was the point I was asking about. I lost track of my own point I was asking Adam about. Indeed. Yes, once you've got that model affliction, then you've got a problem on the flat Earth side too, because you've got a height. And that was kind of my point in asking. I'm pondering whether or not it's an issue in terms of if the majority of flat earthers who do have the same model affliction, they've just acquired a new one with a load of problems that lead them to the tip of the spear in terms of these kind of arguments, which are relatively complicated when they compose some conundrum that you've got to fathom out to try and figure out how they've duped their audience into believing you can't get a flat Earth elevation angle measurement to work on a flat Earth. You're like, okay, how have they done this? That bit's a little bit complicated.
But it is a lot of fun to figure out.
Well, Adam did a beautiful job. I mean, I hadn't bothered doing it, but he broke it down on Tuesday's live show for Quantum Eraser and just broke it down step by step really, really concisely, which I appreciated, Adam, because I didn't really wrap my head around what he'd done, because I didn't, at the time, concern myself with it. As I've been advising people, it's like, once you know that they've got to get a flat Earth angle measurement, in the first case, the angle on the right, I think it was 60 degrees or something, was the first basis for the angle that he's going to use to base the rest of the argument on. So in essence, what he's done is perform celestial trig, or celestial navigation methodology. I'm going to have to get the terminology right, because people do seem to nitpick it. And who can blame them? They've got nothing else. But you've got to use the method of celestial navigation to get that first angle, to then do the maths. Now, coincidentally, he's done it to give him a nice, convenient flat Earth height of the star, or whatever it was. I think it was the sun. Was it the sun? It doesn't matter. He's got himself a height. And then he's taken the angles back using regular trig to a different position from the star or sun or moon or whatever it was he was using. Well, I can concisely summarise that now. Why? Well, that's because of Adam. Because got a mathematician on the panel. Not because I've bothered breaking it down. I can't be bothered with that. I'm lazy. I just need to know angle, first step, flat Earth. That's all I need. Doesn't mean that
Can I
it's
take
not
a stab at this?
Go on.
Yeah. So in their model, they need the sun at vast distances away. And I'll come back to that in a minute. In celestial navigation, it's an altitude above the horizon, maximum being 90 directly overhead of any star, sun, or planets that you're going to use from the Nautical Almanac. So why do they need it at these vast distances? Because their center of a globe model and Eratosthenes, if you go back to what he said, sun is coming parallel. So what's happening on the surface that's curved, I could deem as that vertex coming from the center because of the parallel sun rays. So they needed for that. However, in celestial navigation, it doesn't concern itself with the distance, just the angle in the sky, the altitude from 0 to 90 from the horizon.
That, and it's a little bit convenient to that they're using the word altitude when, like, you look down your street and you see your lights seem to get lower as they go away from you.
Mm-hmm.
They're not changing altitude. They're using an operation of perspective to trick the world.
Correct.
Exactly.
I got two slides in Master B. One that's called Distance Irrelevant.
While I'm bringing that up, I'll just say, yeah, Brian eloquently describes that as well in terms of the way it would change the height if you were actually using it in the regular trig to get the height. Then it would alter as it gets closer to the horizon. But you don't do that. It's not needed when you're doing celestial navigation. It's not used to derive the height of the star. That's not what you're doing. Now, further to that, just before 10th gets into this presentation I've put on screen now, he said, oh, well, when they have the star, it's a vast distance. Well, no, they've got a double header in terms of that problem too, because they've got a distance ascribed in the heliocentric model, and then they've got to project them out to an infinite distance on a celestial sphere when they measure the angle from the equatorial plane. That'd be a flat disk in the middle of their dome of the heavens with the stars at infinite distances when they've got a ascribed distance in their model. Anyway, that's an aside issue. We've got distance irrelevant on screen.
Before we go to that, just to the way we define these distances is not on a flat Earth model. It's not on a globe model. The way in which the distances are defined is via celestial navigation. Then flat earthers stick them on the flat maps and work things out, and ballers do what they do with their contortions and stick it on a ball. But the way in which it's done is through celestial navigation. Neither models are involved in the calculations. The model, the method that's used is celestial navigation, which both parties agree to.
Exactly, and when you start challenging whether or not your elevation angle's using a flat plane or not, you're not challenging us on what we say is used or what we say should be used. You're challenging the methodology of celestial navigation at that stage, anti-flat earthers. Let's get that clear. Distance irrelevant. Go ahead, 10th.
Yeah, so time and date. Based on two coordinates, altitude and azimuth, the horizontal coordinate system provides the general direction in which to find celestial object. Although the distance of the visible planets, stars, and galaxies differs by billions of light years, the system ignores the depth of space as an object's distance is irrelevant for the purpose of locating it in the sky.
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. We don't calculate the height in celestial navigation. Whether it's a globe or a flat Earth, if you're doing celestial navigation, the stars do and the celestial objects are never assigned a height. Never happens. It can't happen because it's not how it works, put simply.
And the slide will show a pictorial for that. Altitude, azimuth, time and date as well. The horizontal coordinate system. The horizontal coordinate system, also known as the alt-az system, is a method for describing the exact position of objects in the sky, such as planets, the sun, or the moon. And as you can see here, you've got a flat baseline and an angle can be achieved. And the maximum angle is the zenith, so it can't go past 90, 0 to 90, perpendicular, right angle. Here we are again, full circle, so to speak, proving our point. Sextant could only work on a flat plane, not a curved adjacent.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm really enjoying the slides that we're getting from you, 10th. They've been epic, as has been commented on by a lot of people, especially in the second channel. Might as well plug that. So subscribe today to my second channel, Nathan Oakley. If you're not a member, then you can see the Uncut and After shows free. So they come out for members immediately after they get recorded on Nathan Oakley 1980. So channel members, or become a channel member if you want to support the channel and watch the Uncut and After shows straight away. But if you don't, you can watch them for free. And that's on my second channel, Nathan Oakley. Actually, I might interrupt this housekeeping session 36 minutes into the live show to say, or to do a little bit of e-begging. So January and February for a smaller YouTuber is a very difficult time of the year. And that does catch up with me eventually, which necessitates me doing a little bit of e-begging. So smash the super chat, smash the PayPal link. It really is appreciated if you do so to support this channel. Thank you to all who have done so already. Really appreciate your support.
Smash it. Yeah, those visuals help. I'm a visual learner, so they help me a lot. Way to be, 10th.
I see your point, Neil.
Very sharp.
Well, when you amass over 40 books on celestial navigation, all from their side of the argument, I'm just going to have years and years of these little slides and snippets from their books. I mean, I'm just using, as you guys correctly put, the well-documented method of celestial navigation, all globe-based, by the way, to point out the violation of the law of non-contradiction within the same books and articles. So this is where you got to use your critical thinking. If they say we have to assume the Earth is flat and stationary for celestial navigation to work, that's a clue. That's a clue when they're saying that.
That's the beauty. That's the beauty of it, though, right? It's from their books. You can't get around that.
I mean, it would be like an argument with a baller or an anti-flat earther. Okay, look, I know my books say I have to consider the Earth flat and motionless for everything to work. Okay, can we set that aside? I want to prove a globe now.
Yeah, don't get hung up on that.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's John's point. John's been saying that since the start of this discussion. They have to concede their argument in order to move forward in the argument.
Sounds crazy, doesn't it? But that's what then it's delusion based. It's no longer a debate.
Yeah, it's no longer agree, disagree. And if you want to argue the toss about what celestial navigation is and isn't doing, you feel free. But it's kind of the end of the road in that regard, because all of the other arguments that we have had up until now did have the opportunity for the opponent to beg the question and then justify the problem with their begging the question fallacy. I.e., if the Earth's a sphere with a radius of 3959, then every distance to horizon measurement can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. But for refraction, using an R value that we can no longer measure to bend the horizon into a non-geometric position that's not blocking things as we assert it should if it's Earth curve, then that justifies my globe Earth belief in a refracted non-geometric horizon. So that argument starts with the begging the question of a sphere Earth and ends in justifying the problem that has arisen as a result of your begging the question fallacy. So it's a long, convoluted process. This is different. This is, if the Earth is flat, I can get my angle measurement. Now let's argue about how that angle measurement proves a sphere. That's what they've got to do. Unlucky. It's the end of the road for globe arguments. As far as I'm concerned, you're not begging the question at the beginning of this one. You're assuming a flat Earth. You must, because you can't get the angle if you don't.
Who was the one that said, I'll give you the flat Earth? Who was that again?
Conspiracy cats.
He wasn't giving it to us. It was necessitated by his argument.
Right. But he said, I'll give you the flat Earth. He had to.
We might as well said, given that I can't get around using a flat Earth elevation angle for this claim, we won't get hung up on the flat Earth proof that I'm now using to make my claim. Here comes my claim.
Yeah, that's good.
See, if you could just get past the point of concession, then they could argue within the delusion.
Yeah, it's not, I'll give you a flat Earth. It's, if we can all just not get hung up on the fact this proves a flat Earth, then let's have a look at the Blackpool Swan. You ready, kids? Yeah, I'll give you a flat Earth, end quote. Conspiracy cats. Well, thank you very much, was my response. That's very kind of you. Welcome to Flat Earth. You'll need that to make this claim, won't you?
Like John's kitchen. Got to get past that point that you know his kitchen floor's flat, so you can move forwards, use calculations and measurements to demonstrate how curved it is. But if you haven't got the premise to get the angles off of a flat baseline in the first place, you've got no measurements to use to demonstrate how curved it is.
Black market flat Earth elevation angles are available. Smash the super chat if you would like a surreptitiously acquired flat Earth angle measurement slipped under the desk to you as an anti-flat earther. That can be arranged. Then you can talk about that angle measurement not having to have to acquire it yourself from a flat Earth. And obviously, we won't mention 90. We'll just all understand that that flat Earth angle measurement you're using in your argument, You didn't measure it. I mean, it doesn't matter where it came from, does it? Who's asking where it came from, eh? Who's asking? What are you, the police? Does it matter where I got it? From a flat earth, that's where you got it.
Oh, hey, up the fences here now. Must have heard you talking about flogging them.
He knows I'm trying to sell something on the black market. Chocolate's not far behind.
What happened?
Oh, we were
What did
talking about selling black market flat earth elevation angles to anti-flat earthers so they can go forth in their claims using these flat earth measurements to make their claim of a sphere. Now, obviously, if they've acquired them on the low, down, under the counter styly, then they didn't measure them, right? So what does it matter where they came from? Who's asking? Why are you, a policeman?
Oh yeah. That's the new hustle. That's what I got on the other side of the trench coat. One side is the geometric horizon. The other side is the curved adjacent angle. Yeah, I got that. I got all of those. 2 for $5 if you need it.
Wait, don't you own a star too?
And horizons. We've got all sorts of black market crap from the sphere left over. We've got to get rid of this stuff quick. Mike 808, thank you very much indeed for the super chat.
Get off the truck.
How many of that fell off the truck?
Price the move, guys. Get them while they're hot.
Yeah, got heliocentric nonsense by the boatload.
Can I read you one?
Yeah, sure.
This is from boating, motorboating.
Motorboating. Okay.
Motorboating.
These have got some funny. I've just got to say, what was it last time? Something about cruising.
Cruise the world, I think.
No, it was much more funny than that. But this one's equally funny. What was it again?
Motorboating.
Motorboating. Okay.
Okay,
Carry on.
I'm the posted. You're going to laugh even more. Give me 30 seconds.
Go ahead, 10th.
Check the picture first before he puts it up.
Hey, give me 30 seconds. I'm gonna put it in.
Is that how long you last? Wow. I can't hold my breath that long.
Well, don't have dead air while I'm working. Come on.
I thought you were off. I thought you were going to be doing some motorboating for 30 seconds. I was looking forward to that.
Is he giggling?
We'll do some cruising next.
Okay, the cover's coming. The article's next. So have some fun while I get the next piece.
Okay. Motorboating.
Can we talk about how?
Go ahead, John. Sorry.
Can we talk about? Oh, I was just going to say, can we talk about how bananas can be apples if you ignore the fact that they're bananas now?
Look, I can provide black market banana apples, and who cares where I got them from? Just work under the premise that they're apples when they're actually bananas. Don't ask any questions about where they came from, and everybody's golden. Golden,
Agreed.
delicious, that is.
Just think about it that way. I mean, every time I get into my Acura, I think I'm getting on a motorcycle, even though I know it's a car.
You should be there, all you patient, dear friends of mine.
Yes, we are there with the text.
Oh, so did you like the motorboating cover since you...
I'm being honest, slightly disappointed. It was not what I was expecting.
What were you expecting?
Razzle.
Razzle.
And dazzle.
Oh, Tazzle. Pete and Perky.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. This is page 37. Let's start where which gave, right where it's the text is turning a little bit more solid, which gave him at first a hint of the true character of the universe, as we shall see. His heliocentric theory really was conceived nearly 7 centuries before the days of Ptolemy, but was to remain unappreciated for 2,000 years. Counterwise, we can have a good-natured laugh at ourselves today when we pick up a modern text on navigation, One of the first things we read is that in order to solve the problems of nautical astronomy, we shall assume that the universe is represented by a revolving celestial sphere of infinite radius, this sphere having its center at the center of a stationary Earth. Ptolemy was wrong, but his basic idea is still useful. How in the world are they saying the Earth is stationary when they say it's not?
Because the stars that you're measuring are going to be moving over the positions on the land that you want to move to. So it works if the stars are moving over the land to various positions that you can measure at the base of that star when it's over that piece of land, inferring that the stars are moving and the land is stationary when you do these sorts of things, i.e. celestial navigation.
How convenient. Would you care for another while I'm here?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, coming your way. This might be the one you're talking about.
What book was that from, sorry?
About motorboating. Stop it. All right, here comes motorboating and sailing. How's that?
Motorboating and sailors would have been more funny, but it's all good.
All right, here we go. Cropping it out.
Popping it out, eh? God.
Cropping it out.
Oh, cropping, my bad.
Oh, easy. Okay, here we go. You have it?
Yes. Navigation.
Concentrate on the sun. Just read below that. In order to know the geographical position of the sun, you must know the exact time of day. In celestial navigation, for conceptual convenience, it is assumed the Earth is motionless and all the activity is celestial.
You say conceptual convenience.
Yes.
Oh, I like that. For conceptual convenience, we must just imagine that it's not moving.
Geometric considerations, close cousin.
Right.
Why would you need to have this
dandy.
consideration? I'm not trying to steal your point, but why do you have to have this consideration? Again, the implication is a bit like when you... No, let's not compare it to anything. Let's just make the example. So, at what point do I go, obviously I'm moving right now, so for the sake of ease, I'm going to now ignore the fact that obviously I'm moving and just consider that I'm not moving? Isn't it stating the bloody obvious? I don't understand why it should even be implied that you should have to make this assumption at any stage. I'll just repeat what I'm saying. The implication being that in order to have to take a step to assume that you're not moving, i.e., if I'm on a train and I go, right, I can look out the window and see that I'm moving. But if I black out all the windows and then ignore the fact that I can feel myself jiggling about a bit, I can, in that sense, assume I'm not moving. But there's a reason why I'd have to take that step to make that inference that I'm not moving when obviously I am. Now, when you take that contextually back to where I am right now, sat here, I'm not in any way thinking, oh, I'm moving. Oh, well, now I'm going to perform an operation, so I better relinquish that obvious movement that I'm experiencing and consider that I'm not moving. It's like when I'm not moving, I don't have to suddenly stop and consider that I'm not moving. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I did. You said it in the previous
They
point,
had
too.
to solve the problem, man. Wasn't that line used in what you read, Tim? In order to solve this problem?
Yeah. And go to the next one.
That's funny because when you say that, it reminds me a lot of the NASA guy, the Orion trial by fire, when he's talking about, they want to send people to this region of space. In order to do that, we have to solve the problem of the heavy radiation in the Van Allen belts, right? When you think about it, like, wait a minute, didn't you guys have missions back and forth through this place? And all of a sudden in 2014, 2015, now you need to solve the problem so that you can find out how you can send people to this region of space? That's funny.
Yeah, it's a Jedi mind trick inventing a problem. It's similar to saying we see too far. So you're implying that there should be a limitation in that statement. It's like, why are we having to infer that we're not moving? If I'm stood still, obviously not moving, I don't suddenly scratch my head and go, now that I've performed this following function, I better stop and consider that I'm not moving. No, I don't normally have to do that unless I am moving and I need to think that I'm not when I am.
Well,
Isn't that the gravity? Isn't that the gravity trick as well, where you say things are falling, but ignoring everything that's going up?
No, that's
Yes.
no, actually, no. That's a repositioning of zero in terms of what they say is a fixed position versus a moving position. So if you take literally what 0G can be delivered to you as a member of the public as, in terms of a physical experience, what is it? It's falling at a given rate. Well, they ascribe that in terms of their description when it's orbital as 0G. Well, you're falling at a constant rate. So all they've done is they've moved moved 1 down to 0. And then when you take that scale and look at us moving, we've got a constant force on us. Got 1G when you're not doing a damn thing. It's like, well, wouldn't it make more sense on that scale to say when you're not moving a smegging inch, you're 0. And then when you're falling at a constant rate, that would be something you can ascribe a value to. But it isn't on their scale, is it? 0's falling, 1 is stationary. G, that is.
You
That's
want to go
fast.
to the next one with air navigation before
Yes.
I put the last one on?
Yes, air navigation.
So
Got it up this cover at least. Do you want me to go to the next one?
Yeah. No, yeah. Just go to. So this one's talking with the usage of a bubble sextant now. Okay, the other one was on the sea. The navigator must realize that the bubble sextant indicates the true vertical only when the instrument is at rest or moving at a constant speed in a straight line as perceived in space. If the Earth were motionless, this straight path in space would be a straight path over the surface of the Earth. Conversely, a straight path over the motionless Earth would also be a straight path in space. Have fun with that one while I put the last one.
Dun, dun, na, 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 na.
Such an archaic model.
We're just waiting for 10th man's
George
next
Orwell,
slide. Just
he
give us a
wrote an
second.
article about the flat Earth, and he said that navigation proves the globe because they do it based off calculations that the Earth is a globe, and the fact that they get to their correct course or destination they aim at would verify the
Okay, tell us
globe.
what those calculations are. That proves.
I don't know. I read it in a George Orwell article.
Okay,
On
that's
the
fair.
flat.
No, that's a fair point then, P. What we're referencing is often inclusive of a disclaimer that says this is working on a sphere, but then when they go through the calculations that you're referring to without knowing, they make it absolutely clear that the only way it can work is on a flat plane, because you can't do the celestial navigation method if it's curved. And the reason is fairly straightforward. When you measure an angle to a star, that's 2 straight lines, not 1 curved line and 1 straight line. Simple.
You think George Orwell was incorrect?
George Orwell, was he writing celestial navigation books and detailing the 90 degree below the GP of the star, or the angle being 2 straight lines meeting at a vertex on a flat baseline? Was he? If he was detailing those things, then I'll agree with him. If he says that the measurements and then details nothing, gives no justification and no sphericity to an angle measurement, which is impossible, then who cares? If he says celestial navigation's working on, I can say celestial navigation's working in Narnia. Does it mean that it's true? Unless I offer some actual validity with some measurements, but you don't know what they are. You're just taking him as a word that the measurements, which definitely only work on a plane, and we can show that and do.
You think he's just making it up?
No, it's just, I don't know. I can't speak to the Orwellian motivation, I'm afraid. Sorry.
I think I think my
No.
next slide
Because
will
like he's
kind
like
of answer
he's like famous for being an intellectual, and I can't imagine he would be like in error on this matter.
Okay, that's
and
called
write an article
okay,
about
okay,
it.
okay. Let me just deal with this
Mars?
just quickly. That's called an appeal to authority fallacy. Is he a celestial? Is he operating or describing or detailing with experience celestial navigation? No. So what? Because he's an intellectual, he should know how we acquire 90 degrees to a GP with a flat Earth angle measurement called elevation angle. He's not an expert in this field, so that's an appeal to authority fallacy. Okay, we
The
done?
next five
Yeah,
slides will answer this. The
Perfect.
next 5 slides will answer this.
Moving heaven and earth.
Now, I shared this the other day, so here we go. Go to the next slide, please. Chapter 1, you'd have to be crazy to say the Earth moves. Science or insanity, question mark. Death and taxes are often said to be the only certainties, but there's something else. The Earth certainly doesn't seem to be moving, no matter what the scientists tell us about the way the Earth rotates on its axis. So that someone standing at the equator is moving around the center of the Earth at a speed of over 1,000 miles per hour, it all seems perfectly still. We all believe what we are told about the Earth's revolutions around the sun, covering a distance of about 584 million miles in a year, which is another 66,000 miles per hour or more. But we are taking it on trust. We can't feel ourselves moving. Those of us who have read a little further or who have watched more programs on Discovery Channel or who once bumped into a friendly astronomer might also have learned that we, together with the sun, are circling around the center of our galaxy at an even more unimaginable speed, roughly 350,000 miles per hour, and that the galaxy itself is whizzing through space on a trajectory resulting ultimately from a big bang that created our universe. But we cannot feel any of this. It's not just a question of how it feels either. If our senses don't tell us the Earth is moving, it is also true that for technical purposes, remember that phrase, it actually makes sense to assume the Earth is stationary. If you look at a textbook on navigation, for example, you'll see it assumes that the Earth is stationary and that all the heavenly bodies are revolving around the Earth. The authors of such manuals probably know better than you or me that the Earth is perpetually performing a series of complex motions, but they also know that you don't need to know this to steer your boat by the stars. You can go to the next slide. On the contrary, it makes things simpler if you assume the Earth is still and only the stars and your boat are moving. Therefore, it is wrong to assume that technical demands, I told you to remember that, must be inevitably lead us to a belief in the motion of the Earth. They don't. So how on earth did we ever come to believe in the motion of the Earth? If our senses and our common sense tell us that the Earth is not fast but steadfast, and if it is a requirement of a practical, useful technical art like navigation that the Earth be considered stationary, why and how did we ever come to believe that the Earth is whizzing through space with such phenomenal speeds? If we just set aside for a minute what we have taken on trust since we were school children, the idea that the Earth is moving just seems totally crazy. It can't really be moving, can it? Next slide. Yes, it can. And what's more, we now all believe that anyone who denies the motion of the Earth must be a crank or a fool. So how has it come about that it is now crazy to deny what actually seems to be crazy idea? The short answer is that we all now recognize the intellectual power and authority of science. Even if we don't know much about the details, we know that a moving Earth is bound up with the latest astronomical cosmological ideas, which in turn are bound up with well-established theories of modern mathematical physics. We also have a strong sense, even if we can't follow the technical demonstrations, that this same edifice of mathematical physics has led to most, if not all, of the high technology that is now such an indispensable part of our lives. It is part of our scientific worldview that the laws of nature are so all persuasive and so interconnected with one another that to reject the claim that the Earth moves would somehow have to entail not only, say, a denial that we ever landed men on the moon, but also that television sets work. But of course, there hasn't always been this kind of faith in the power and persuasiveness of scientific knowledge. Like everything else, our modern worldview has its history and its historical origins. If it was possible at all to pinpoint a single initial source from which the modern physical sciences developed and spread out, explaining more and more aspects of our world as they did so, and leading to more and more technical innovations. Last slide. The most likely contender for the starting point would be the claim by Nicholas Copernicus that the Earth is in motion. One of the main aims of this book is to explain how it was that a highly technical astronomical theory, far beyond the mathematical competence and understanding of all but a very few people, came to have such far-reaching repercussions. Along the way, we will come to see why it was Copernicus's claim, first published in the middle of the 16th century, that was to have this seismic impact rather than one of the various earlier suggestions that the Earth might be in motion. You've been duped by pseudoscience.
Someone have something up on screen that they wanted to present? Who's presenting? Go ahead, Adam.
Literally, just to respond to that, I'd like to say to you, Aries, failure. All of this is saying it's simpler to assume that the stars are moving. Well, George Airy set out to answer that question, didn't he? It's described as his failure, but reality is he uses a telescope to test whether or not the star field is moving or the Earth is moving, and he does it by different mediums. And when the telescope was moving, then the path will be slightly different through the water. You can see here, look. And so to be able to see the star, when you put the water in, you have to increase the tilt. That's if the telescope's moving. If the telescope isn't moving, you don't have to increase the tilt. And you didn't have to increase the tilt, demonstrating that the star field is moving and not the Earth. So this isn't science. This is zetetic proof, which uses empiricism, but to reach a logical conclusion rather than a cause and effect. It still tries to use empirical methods to come to that. So this is just kind of a logical proof as to the statements that 10th was talking about in those books, as to let's assume that the Earth isn't moving. Well, actually, we can demonstrate it. And maybe that's the reason that celestial navigation assumes.
I've just got to correct that. We can validate it as a null result in this instance.
There's no claim of science.
Well, Aries did, though, didn't he?
He did, but I was hopefully making my point there that I'm not. This is logic that you can use to draw an inference from, but there's no science here. To try and say there's an effect is incorrect. He might have done, and it's described as an experiment. Look, I was careful not to do the same. I'm not decrying the man, because the point still stands. That's the important bit, that this is demonstrable with logic as to which is moving. And if somebody wants to attack that logic, fine, I'd listen to it. But as it's demonstrated there, I think it's pretty clear that there's no need to assume that it's the star field moving, even though we know the Earth's moving, because this demonstrates to us which is moving and which isn't.
Yeah, that I'll agree with. I'm just going to read out a super chat from Theo Megawetti. He says, in Orwell's 1984, I think this is addressed to P. Mars, Winston is told the mathematicians can make the stars close or far, and the Earth is what they want it to be. And you will believe. I agree.
Not us.
Hold on. I agree with Theo. Thank you very much for the super chat, first and foremost. I don't think that was P. Mars's point. He wasn't referring to the novels in terms of Orwell and what he states. So, yeah. We can draw inference from the novels, but that makes us sound a bit less reasonable than P. Mars. I can't believe I've just said that when someone's giving me money. Oh, God. Sorry, Theo.
Yeah, but P. Mars, if that was the guy saying Orwell when he came, he's appealing to authority. And then you said, what does he know about celestial navigation, just because he's a philosopher and wrote a book?
Yeah, no, my point. I'm not saying my response to it wasn't invalid, and P even agreed. But it's more that Theo's then referring to something he's put in a novel.
Well, that's a novel.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that
Anyway.
whole segment of that book I read talked about the very fact that we have to trust these people even though our senses tell us otherwise.
Correct.
Indeedy weedy. Any last comments on this before I round out and ask people to stay tuned?
No. They might say that, but that archaic bit of logic supports the archaic worldview.
I'll attack it in the after show.
Not for long, Adam.
That I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. As I say, not the best of circumstances to be e-begging constantly, but yeah, smash the PayPal link if you did want to support this channel. January and February are always a terribly difficult month for a smaller YouTuber, so any support is greatly appreciated. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video. Shout out to Theo Megawerty for hitting the super chat just at the end of the live stream. He says, the point is, Orwell knew that maths can create someone's reality. He got it. Thank you for clarifying the point, Theo Megawerty, and thank you very much indeed for the super chat also.
You would think that would shake a few people up.
What would?
John's kitchen.
Oh, it did. Oh, it definitely hit home. That was a home run. There's no doubt about that.
I mean, to the point where they start to see how ludicrous it is.
No, I mean, a complicated argument that is presented by somebody that's offering themselves up as an authority that understands how to make us stupid flat earthers shut up. The people who are on a journey for affirmation bias, they'll find that person and not actually look into the claim and how it's worked. They won't do what Adam did and pull apart how it actually is formulated and therefore incorrect. They'll just listen to the person and say, here's some maths that shows the flat earthers are wrong. And they won't look at the first step in that maths. The first step being measuring a flat earth elevation angle. That happens when they get here. What they do see is someone saying, I've got 10 grand to offer if you can solve this problem. And they come to the comment section under the live videos and say, when are you going to deal with the Polaris challenge from McToon? He's got 10 grand, you could be getting 10 grand. Inferring that there's a challenge that's unfulfilled that proves the Earth's a sphere by way of this angle measurement taken from a star after you take a flat earth angle measurement. They don't actually understand how the argument works. So when I reply and say, this was dealt with last month, he needed a flat earth angle measurement to make the challenge, they don't understand the reply, let alone the challenge that was laid down. They just want to come here and tell us that we're stupid because it makes them feel better for a second, even though they don't understand why the argument does or doesn't work. They don't need that. They just need to feel better for a few seconds by saying, look, I told you there was someone smarter than you that could show how you were wrong. I don't need to know how. But ha, look, he showed how wrong you were. You go, no, he didn't. He needed a flat earth angle measurement. They go, you're just dumb.
Yeah, that's true, because that's what Randy was saying on Jen Panda's, what was it, yesterday or the day before? How come nobody's rushing to get this $10,000?
I think
So
I'm
he
owed that.
misses it.
I think I'm owed that because I showed how his challenge can work in a flat plane to turn it into a sphere. I think he should give me 10 grand.
That's how we started this discussion when we were talking about whether or not you hit a home run with that. Yeah, you took the exact same maths. They ruined the flat earth point slightly for the dumb people who didn't follow the argument by taking a flat earth angle measurement and then taking an angle back from the lighting fixture to show how the flat earth angle measurement in the kitchen floor that needed to be flat to get it wasn't flat. He just took the exact same argument that they made. That's their challenge. And showed how it made his kitchen that's using flat earth angle measurements not flat anymore. Ha ha ha! Ta-da! Yeah.
Isn't there an outstanding free Bitcoin offer that they haven't come to answer?
Yeah, David Weiss's challenge still stands as far as I'm aware. Join his app. So, Flat Earth, Sun, Moon and Zodiac Clock app. And then there's a set of instructions once you've joined the app that will tell you what you need to do in order to satisfy the criteria. I don't even know what that is, to be honest, because I'm not, I have got his app, but I'm not going onto that to see how I can get 3 Bitcoin. I just had a conversation with him. I was like, if I thought for 1 second that I could get those 3 Bitcoin, I'd be trying. But I'm not. So I'm not. So.
And that's the boss there.
Would I get 3 Bitcoins from my kitchen?
Proving how your flat earth angle measurements showed how it couldn't be flat when you took the angle back from the star and halved it. Or doubled it, sorry.
Well, see, that's the thing. I never took the angle from the star. I lowered the star's position relative to the surface of the kitchen using perspective and the arc measurement of the protractor to change the angle.
But you've just told Dave Weiss why he wouldn't be giving you 3 Bitcoin, though, in that, haven't you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm ridiculous. How can you assert the Earth's a sphere?
I feel silly when people talk about it. It makes me cringe. In general, normie society, I'm talking about. And I don't feel compelled to tell them otherwise, but by the same token, I'd hear it and my eyes roll.
Yeah, watching church the other day, if the pastor said planet one more time, I was going to flip out.
I said this last week. I think John's kitchen needs a follow-up one and series of them. They're that good because if you can make a kitchen a sphere, John's proving a recipe for disaster for the anti-flat earthers.
Recipe for disaster.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you can turn John's kitchen into the same sphere that they've done to our flat Earth, then you can turn anything into it, and he proved it. It's beautiful.
All I did was prove that I'm not really a flat earther, is what I'm getting now.
Yeah, that's right. Who said that? Rufy?
No, Protothad.
So then he validates the trickery with mathematical to turn a flat kitchen into a sphere, synonymous to what they did with Earth. Then is that what he's doing?
If this was a battle sequence, right, it would be the bad guy holding a mace, like a ball and chain thing, ready to crack you over the head with it. But John, in this instance, is Neo, and with one arm behind his back, he's just sort of taking his time, seeing it all in slow motion. And then at some point, he takes the mace off them, looks at it, and swings it around their head. the mace being this argument with these angles back from the star.
That happened in the second Matrix movie.
Yeah, but he's taking their own argument and in his own good time having a slow, casual look at how the argument functions and then using it on them immediately. So they've come charging in with the mace, going, "Rah, I'm so hard at this mace, rah!" And John's gone, interesting, spikes in the top.
Reality.
And then he's gone, bang, whacked them around the head with their own mace. That's what he's done.
Right. It just shows that you can make anything into a sphere. And that's how the Earth turned into a sphere.
No. I could only turn a flat plane into a sphere with that math.
Yeah, it's better than that, Arwin. Better than that. In order to assert you've got a spherical surface beneath your feet, you're first going to be measuring a flat surface. You can't make the maths work unless you measure that flat Earth elevation angle in the first instance to assert that you're on a spherical surface. So it's not that, well, it doesn't prove we're on a sphere or it debunks. It's no. First step, measure flat Earth. That's step one, right, John? In all these arguments, that's why it's beautiful. Even if you don't follow the maths after about 30 seconds, by then you've already heard that you've measured an angle off a flat plane. You've already heard it. It's all you need.
But no, I did write it on my protractor that it wasn't a flat plane, just so the anti-flat earthers could hold on to hope.
All right, I'll give you a flat Earth.
Just got to get past that.
Second time you've mentioned conspiracy cats on this show, Neil.
I'm not a fan.
You're not a fan of conspiracy cats?
No.
It's very simple. You give us our ball and we'll give you your flat Earth.
Now, normally when Neil
Everybody's
says he's
happy.
not a fan of something, it means he's been paying close attention to it, probably subscribed.
No, actually, I'm not subscribed. I've never subscribed to him. I only heard about him from you guys.
He's just a delusional flat earther is all he is.
Well, he's given his whole audience a flat Earth. I'll give you a flat Earth, as Neil keeps pointing out. So he gave his audience a flat Earth, didn't he? Kudos.
I'll tell you why. Because I knew the answer when QE asked you the question. I just couldn't get to my mute button fast enough.
I have no idea what you're referencing.
When QE said to you, do you know why? He said, I forgot how he phrased it.
I'll give you a flat Earth.
No, QE didn't say that, though. Oh, yeah, he did. And because he had to. That was the answer.
Yeah, can't work any other way. And that's the current argument. It's beautiful. Can't beg the question of a sphere. You've got to measure a flat plane to then beg the question of a sphere using those angles.
Which I'll say again makes the debate over, and then it just becomes about addressing people's delusion.
Indeed. And up until this point, up until the sextant argument, I was like, I hadn't up until then got an argument that I would stand behind in terms of proving that the Earth is flat. When people have asked me that, I've gone, here you go to this other person's claim to be top 5. And there you go. I like them all. They're all logically consistent. I'm not going to argue that any of them don't prove it. I just didn't like any of them. I don't know. I'll maybe go through them after the fact and maybe appreciate why I didn't like them. But I wanted something clean. You were like laughing earlier that I said tidy. But that's what I mean. Not an argument that you've got to get them to concede, because if that's the positioning of the argument after a long debate or discussion, they'll just take you back around the same circle of them begging the question again, and you going through the same motions of explaining why it's wrong, and hopefully the audience will lose track, and a draw is what they get at the end of that, even if you've got the winning point. If they have never conceded it, it may not be obvious.
But begging the question is all they ever got, and how to conceal that fact.
Exactly.
That's
what
it is.
You could chew up an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours doing that, even with a winning point on the table from our side. This is different. What have you got to do, John, before you move forward in the argument?
You have to accept reality. You have to take an angle measurement.
Take an angle measurement from a flat plane with a flat, straight line. That's what an angle is. It's implicit. It's not like I'm inferring the Earth's flat from that. It is and must be. It can't not be. It wouldn't work if it wasn't. And there's no getting around it. That's why they have to measure an angle. We have to measure an angle. And after the fact, that's used to create a sphere. Well, that's going to need a flat Earth to do, isn't it? A very unique argument in that respect. Which I never thought we'd get. I'm sure there was a couple of occasions when I said 100% of the time you've got to beg the question of a sphere to make a sphere argument. And I was wrong. In this instance, you've got to assume Earth's flat to measure an angle and then assume that you can get a sphere from it. So no, you're not going to have to beg the question of a sphere in every instance. In this case, it's got to be flat first. I never expected that to be the case. Did anybody on the panel ever think that we'd get an argument from the globe side where when they move forward, first step, flat Earth? No? Nobody? I'll assume that means
No, I
nobody.
didn't. No, I didn't until the research.
Never thought of the question. Did you guys go and tear this thing apart? You'd have to be crazy to say the Earth moves. Did you go through this?
Which what? Go through what?
Science or insanity?
Is it something you've posted in one of the Skypes?
No, that's the one. That's the one I read. QE. I just read it and it spoke for itself. But
I know.
feel free to comment.
Yeah, I'd like to go through this a little bit. You got the main idea that you've been duped. I've been saying this for many years. This has rings of superimposing actual science on the science. You know, the little preamble I used to give with all my presentations. You want to go through this again?
Yeah, if you can get your take on it. I mean, I think 10th's right in the respect that it's self-explanatory. They're telling you right out front, aren't they?
Can I hum the Star Trek theme in the background? Because it definitely needed some while Tiff was reading it.
I'm going to stop at certain points. You'll know when I stop. You ready?
Yep. Just one note, John. You can order the book. It just came the other day. It's a small paperback, so you can look it up and order it.
Negative. You'd have to be crazy to say the Earth moves. Science or insanity. Death and taxes are often said to be the only certainties, but there's something else. The Earth certainly doesn't seem to be moving. No matter what the scientists tell us about the way the Earth rotates on its axis, is the Earth moving on its axis a scientific topic?
No.
No matter what pseudoscience tell us about the way the Earth rotates on its axis, so that someone standing at the equator is moving around the center of the Earth at a speed of over 1,000 miles per hour, it all seems perfectly still. We all believe what we are told about the Earth's revolutions around the sun, covering a distance of about 584 million miles in a year, which is another 66,000 miles per hour or more, but we are taking it on trust. We can't feel ourselves moving. Those of us who have read a little further, who have watched more programs on Discovery Channel, or who once bumped into a friendly astronomer, might also have learned that we, together with the sun, are circling around the center of our galaxy at even more unimaginable speed. Let's go back to this bumped into a friendly astronomer. Are astronomers scientists?
No.
Roughly 350,000 miles per hour, and that the galaxy itself is whizzing through space on a trajectory resulting ultimately from the Big Bang. Is the Big Bang a scientific theory?
No.
That created our universe. See the glossary section. Yeah, I'm sure to see the glossary. But we cannot feel any of this. Shocking. It's not just a question of how it feels either. If our senses don't tell us the Earth is moving, it is also true that for technical purposes, it actually makes sense to assume the Earth is stationary. If you look in a textbook on navigation, for example, you'll see it assumes the Earth is stationary and that all the heavenly bodies are revolving around the Earth. The authors of such manuals probably know better than you or me, doubtful, that the Earth is perpetually performing a series of complex motions. But they also know that you don't need to know this. Here, this goes into another good topic. See, they think they don't think they know their target audience for the most part are abject morons. That's what. So they're treating you as a fool.
Can I just paraphrase it? Don't worry
Go ahead.
your precious little head about it.
Right. On the contrary, it makes things simpler if you assume the Earth is still and the only stars and your boat are moving. Therefore, it is wrong to assume that technical demands must inevitably lead us to believe in the motion of the Earth. They don't. So how on earth did we ever come to believe in the motion of the Earth? If our senses and our common sense tell us that the Earth is not fast but steadfast, and if it is a requirement of a practically useful technical art like navigation that the Earth be considered stationary, why and how did we ever come to believe that the Earth is whizzing through space with such phenomenal speeds? If we just set aside for a minute that what we have taken on and trust since we were school children that the idea of the Earth is moving just seems totally crazy. It can't really be moving, can it? Yes, it can. And what's more, we now all believe that anyone who denies the motion of the Earth must be a crank or a fool. So how has it come about it is now crazy to deny what actually seems to be a crazy idea? The short answer is that we all know and recognize the intellectual power and the authority of science. Really? Is this a scientific...
Wow.
We haven't had any science so far. You've given the 3 examples that inferred it, and none of them had any science attached. So thus far, no reference to science. This isn't science. There's no need to reference science. It's a lie to reference science. This is not science.
But the
Also, there's
authority
a
of science.
reification fallacy, authority of science, because the scientific method has no authority. Let's continue. Even if we don't know much about the details, we know that a moving Earth is bound up with the latest astronomical and cosmological ideas. Is astronomy and cosmology scientific?
No.
What's this idea thing? This sounds like church, which in turn are bound up with well-established theories. Really? Has Tia mentioned any scientific theories so far?
There is no science, therefore there can't be any scientific theories. No.
Well-established theories of modern mathematical physics. We got ourselves a paradox here, folks. There's no such animal as mathematical physics. Mathematical is abstract, whereas physics is what?
Study of the physical.
Yeah. There's a contradiction here. It's a paradox. No such thing as mathematical physics. Now, if they would have put theoretical physics there, which I think that's what they're trying to do. All right. So theoretical physics is giving you the sphere, is what they're saying. We also have a strong sense, even if we can't follow technical demonstration, that this same edifice of mathematical physics, here we go again, same edifice of a paradox has led to most, if not all, of the high technology. Really? Really? So a paradox has led to all this high technology. Doesn't this ring true? Remember I used to say, well, since transistors work, therefore evolution, Big Bang, sphere, Earth are true, right? Remember that?
Yep.
You're not taking it far enough. Email, John. Email.
Yeah, email, right? Mathematical physics has led us, if not all, to the high technology. Can anyone show the high technology that astrophysics, cosmology, and astronomy have given us?
None.
Just one.
None. There is none.
Yeah. That is how such an indispensable part of our lives. This is now such an indispensable part of our lives. Yeah. So it is part of our scientific worldview. Really? Where's the science at?
There isn't any, hasn't been any so far, and so far they've started hijacking it and inferring it where they don't have any.
It is a part of our scientific worldview that the laws of nature are all pervasive. The laws of nature, those aren't scientific. Those are natural laws. and so interconnected with one another that to reject the claim that the earth moves around would somehow have to entail not only, say, a denial that we ever landed men on the moon. Yeah, but that's back to those natural laws, you numpty dipshit. But also the television sets work, right? This is right in the lane. Since transistors work, therefore evolution, big bangs, right? There you go. He's
can
giving
you pause for just 1 second?
Yeah, don't forget glasses.
Hold on. Just before you carry on, QE, we will open this up to everyone. I know it's just predominantly me and Q at the moment. I want you to expand on that. They very quickly go from a false assertion that natural laws are scientific when they're not. They're descriptions of things that occur always, as opposed to validated experimental science. So they've used this false description of natural science and then immediately gone on to something that is described as occurring always, in this case the second law of thermodynamics, and linked it to men landing on the moon. Now you quickly said, oh right, so ignore that violation of those laws of nature then. Can you, I know I've pretty much summarised it, but can you just expand on it again and then move on from there?
Oh, no, you did. I mean, it's so ironical that they would say that in the same statement. Natural laws, obviously, second law of thermodynamics, and men landing on the moon. It's ironic in sort of a twisted Elmer Fudd sort of way.
Because the second law of thermodynamics would dictate that if the sky was a vacuum, for the journey to the moon to have taken place in as claimed, then the gas we breathe would never have developed gas pressure. It would have filled the space they claim to have travelled through. Ergo, the space they claim to have travelled through is fake. That would be outer space. It's a violation of a natural law, the second law of thermodynamics. Entropy increase. Gas, at pressure, expands to fill the space it has. And the fake place is ironically called space. A space for the gas to fill. Meaning we'd all be dead if they'd made that journey. I just wanted to summarise that for any who are listening that don't appreciate it. Feel free to continue.
Yeah. Chocolate, I already heard you. Don't worry about it. I heard that because glasses work from Penelope Hassenpfeffer, Sabine the numpty dipshit. All right, I got that part. Since glasses work, the earth must be a sphere.
Exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
I just want to, before we all chime in, but I want you to carry on from we're at, but of course there hasn't.
I know where we're at. But of course, there hasn't always been this kind of faith in the power and pervasiveness of scientific knowledge. Oh, goodness gracious, baltards, you have faith in your science. Like I said, this is religious text. Like everything else, our modern worldview has its history and its historical origins. If it is possible at all to pinpoint a single initial source from the modern physical sciences, which one are those? Developed and spread out, explaining more and more aspects of our world as they did so, and leading to more and more technical innovations. The most likely contender for the starting point would be the claim by Nicholas Copernicus, 1473 to 1543, that the Earth is in motion. This seems a bit antiquated, doesn't it? Nicholas Copernicus. Can anyone read the preface to, what was his book? The Heavenly Spheres, something about the Heavenly Spheres. Read the preface to that book, and they'll go into what a hypothesis is and how there is not one in his book. I digress. One of the main aims of this book is to explain how it was that highly technical astronomical theory, well, if they didn't have a hypothesis in the entire book, they surely didn't have a scientific theory, because scientific theories are made from hypotheses. Technical astronomical theory, far beyond the mathematical competence. Math? For what? You have no math. Show me math of a sphere Earth. One formula, one equation that works. One. You won't find one. They tell you math works. That's the headline. Ask them to show you. There is none. And the understanding of all but a very few people came to have such far-reaching repercussions. Along the way, we will come to see why it was Copernicus's claim, first published in the middle of the 16th century, that was to have this seismic impact, rather than one of the various earlier suggestions that the Earth might be in motion. That's the end, I think. Yeah. That's it.
It is a great
You just
example.
read about the tea?
when you said transistors, therefore globe Earth, this is that in genuine context with them saying precisely that. If it wasn't for our claims of Big Bang, you wouldn't have moon landings and computers and televisions.
Yeah, they try to connect it with technology, right? Just like I said before in many presentations, but it's really feebly pathetic. And what they're actually doing, like I said before, they know their target audience are basically morons. That's what they think in their mind. They're not far from the truth, by the way. So they use that against you, and they just give you headlines and generalities and speak of science and technology. Never, ever get into any detail whatsoever. They'll stay far away from it.
Yeah.
Why? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
It did sound a hell of a whole lot like religion, because all I kept hearing was the word belief, and then we ended off with faith, and it's like, wait a minute, isn't this all supposed to be empirical? Why do I have to believe in science?
Have some
What the hell are
faith
you
in
talking
science,
about?
Chocolate. Have some
Nah, I'm
faith.
good.
Wait,
Nah, I'm
shouldn't
good.
it be demonstrated?
We need to pray for
You
science,
would
people. We need to
think.
pray.
They beautifully transition between the abstract and the scientific in that last statement where they're telling you not to worry your precious little head about it. So they're talking about the astronomical theory. No, as QE pointed out, no, there is no science. And while they might have alluded to it and used that word several times, there isn't any. But then they go on to say far beyond the mathematical competence. So they clarify what they're actually talking about. Not theory in terms of the science that they're offering, but mathematics and how much of the maths you can understand based on your competence and understanding. Now, there's
You
a
just don't
few
understand.
people that'll get that, but obviously the target audience, as Q is pointing out, aren't very bright and won't recognise that astronomical theory, far beyond mathematical competence makes no sense and is actually telling you the bait and switch of science with maths that they're actually doing when they tell you you're too stupid to understand. The person who wrote this is probably having a right good chuckle at the majority of people who read it and nod their heads, rather than pulling it apart as QE and 10th Man have done.
You just don't understand mathematical physics, Nathan.
Exactly, Owen.
You need to read that on TikTok. Just the way you read it.
You don't understand achromatic rainbows.
Achromatic rainbows. That's copyrighted, by the way. I need to see some math, because all I have been hearing for the past 6 years, math. You don't know how to math. Can somebody, a baller, come on and show one equation, one formula that points to the Earth being a balltard?
Orwell said
Just
they
one.
all work.
Yep, he did. But I think that we're not going to be able to talk to him unless we get some serious smelling salts and a really big fucking heater.
Are you saying Orwell wasn't a really intelligent guy and everything he says that is claimed to be maths and correct isn't? I mean, what's wrong with you, man?
Yeah, I'm saying that he was just parroting the headlines that was told to him. So the challenge is for any balltard to come in here, just one equation, one formula that points to the Earth being a sphere or validates the Earth being a sphere. I challenge you.
You're asking for an impossible. Hold on. You're asking for you're asking for an abstract equation to prove something in physicality. Is that what you're asking for? Correct?
Yes, I am.
Terrestrial refraction formula.
Was that? Yes, I am. Your acknowledgement that I understand the problem in the question. This could be a housekeeping question, could it not?
Yes, it could.
Most definitely. I love these formulations.
I like it.
Does anybody spot the internal, how do you phrase it, problem the opponent has in answering the question within the question? Can you just ask it again, QE, so everyone prick up your ears? You're going to be quizzed.
Yes. I want one glober, aka balltard. Maths. That's all we've heard for better than 6 years. Math, right? I want one balltard to provide one equation or one formula, just one, that validates that the Earth is a sphere.
Okay, who can spot the problem they will have in doing that? Why can that never be done?
Maths doesn't validate nothing. It
Maths doesn't
calculates.
validate physics.
It's just a description.
It's an abstract description.
Not scientific evidence.
Naughty question.
It's a very naughty. That's why QE's fucking ace, isn't he?
Did somebody say it was a very naughty question?
Yeah, it is a naughty question. And when I asked you and clarified how it was a naughty question without giving the game away, you went, yes, it is. That you gave a naughty, wry reply.
Here you go to Master B. I just put the last paragraph on page 11. Read that one.
All right. Given two models to choose from, given two models.
No. Just go to the last one.
No, I like the start.
to-
Given a false dichotomy, carry on.
Hold on a second. Make sure I got the last one. Hey, it's page 11.
Yeah, I just took the bottom paragraph. I'll do the whole page in a minute.
You want me to just read the bottom paragraph, not the two models above?
Yeah, just read the bottom and I'll post the whole page so you can see what the two models is.
Okay. The last paragraph says, we came to the conclusion earlier that we are willing to suspend our disbelief about the crazy notion that the earth is in motion because we have come to trust the authority of the physical sciences. Yeah, this is the same thing, more or less, from before. But in Copernicus's day, science did not have the same commanding authority. That's a reification fallacy. So what made Copernicus believe that the earth was in motion? And why did others come to believe it too? That's it for the paragraph. Unless you...
Before you go on to the last
whole page
page,
is up now.
just because it's got terminology that I use and doesn't often get referenced. So, the suspension of disbelief. It's a very, very beautiful way of putting it. And it's what's used in performance art. And the suspension of disbelief is used when you are going to the cinema and you're watching Superman fly around the sphere Earth. While you appreciate and understand that Superman is not real, your disbelief in regards to seeing a man in a sky vacuum flying around a sphere is ignored. It's at an unconscious level. And the reason it's at an unconscious level is because we're all programmed from birth to understand that the Earth is a sphere and the sky is a vacuum. So you, as an individual, without realising it, suspend disbelief. Anyway, I just like the way it was phrased. I've got the full text up now.
Yeah, I'm going to read it. It's good that I didn't catch that, but you're all over that. All right, the whole
Hey,
last
Huey, sorry to interrupt you. Let me post page 10 where it starts in the middle. Just give me a second.
Okay.
So yeah, there's certain kinds of suspension of disbelief that people are aware of. So at a conscious level, when you're at a theatre, the actors and actresses have got to work well to not alienate their audience, which means to relinquish the suspension of disbelief, i.e. remove yourself from the moment and realise that they're just actors on a stage, not really the people they're pretending to be. Well, you want to avoid that at all costs. And when you're watching a play, i.e. the actors are in front of you, you mentally take yourself to a place where you allow yourself to suspend disbelief. In other words, you are at a conscious level very much aware that what is happening in physical reality in front of you with real people isn't actually them themselves, the actors. They're the characters. That's a suspension of disbelief at a conscious level. And I've already detailed in terms of sphere Earth in a vacuum when Superman's flying around. You've got a mixture of both. You've got a suspension of disbelief in the conscious level, i.e. you are aware and know that you're letting yourself believe that Superman can fly around anything. That's a conscious suspension of disbelief. But an unconscious suspension of disbelief is the pre-programming idea and notion of a philosophy of a sphere Earth in a sky vacuum. You don't consciously suspend disbelief when you see that. You just do it without realising it. That's what they play on. As long as you all understand that we're going to be assuming we're moving, but we're going to, for a moment, just relinquish that suspension of disbelief because we don't realise we're moving because we experience no movement. But let's just relinquish that because obviously at an unconscious level, we're all suspending the disbelief that we're not moving. It's complex but eloquent. I like it. Who wrote this?
It's a storytelling medium, right?
It's beautiful, isn't it? Anthony was here. Call it poetry. Sorry, I'm rubbishing.
John Henry wrote it.
If Anthony was here, we'd be calling it poetry.
It is, right? The storytelling medium is the thing you take for granted because the only thing important about it is that you understand it, so that you understand that the actual introduced elements that draw our focus, the story plot, that you understand what's happening in there because you have to have an understanding for the medium in order to get a grip on that. Otherwise, it's just all really weird. So
well
we
said.
learn about the story medium and we take it for granted. And then
Well
it's like,
said.
oh, look at this fake thing that's obviously fake. But the storytelling medium itself is also fake, but you don't realize that.
Exactly. And you don't realise it even though it's being disclaimed in the words, which is where QE and 10th have obviously latched onto this. It's like, they're telling you right here. But the idea is that the mental capacity of the person reading it isn't high enough to realise that when they're reading it. They only take the surface level. And many of the things and the words used will go straight over the head of the person reading them. Now, words are used for a reason. John barks on about this with reference to, I forget who she was, many, many times. Choose your words carefully. Well, this person has chosen their words very carefully. And it's eloquent. You can't deny it. And if you're of the inclination to, what does he mean by that? Then you go and have a little look and you go, bloody hell, this guy's calling me thick. If you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah. 10. Do you want me to start at page 10 in the middle? Astronomy rules, okay, and then go to page 11?
Yeah.
Page 10, astronomy rules. Okay. Now, you might imagine that it was simply a question of getting the astronomy right. Why would you have to get the astronomy right if this was science? After all, neither Nicole Oresme or Nicholas of Cusa, Mr. Motorboat, were astronomers, and so were forced to talk only in terms of maybes? What? As for the ancient Pythagorean astronomers, that's very interesting. Perhaps they never actually succeeded in providing an astronomy capable of predicting planetary motions. We don't actually know enough about the outcome of their efforts. So maybe all that was really lacking was a properly worked out system of astronomy in which the sun was at the center and the earth in orbit around it. In which case, we can simply say that Copernicus just happened to be the first astronomer with the necessary mathematical genius to come along, and he set the world to rights. End of story. But it's not the end of the book here. Got page 11. But not too fast. We've already seen that technical astronomy, what the hell is that? Technical astronomy in itself isn't enough, yeah, I suppose so, to convince us that the Earth is in motion. Technical astronomy just isn't that kind of thing. Well, what kind of thing is it?
Sounds like astrophysics.
What astronomy does is to provide, oh, this is going to be good. What astronomy does is to provide us with a geometrical model, really. Like to see that, of how the heavenly bodies are moving. The only requirements of the model, that's a reification fallacy, by the way, there are no models in science, are that the notions of the planets and the stars that it provides should closely match the closer the better, the recorded observations of those motions, and that the proposed movements of the heavenly bodies should be at least plausible. What the fuck? It happens that there is always more than one way to model. Let me just read it the way it should read. It happens that there is always more than one way to reification fallacy the motions of the heavens. And as present-day manuals of navigation attest, at least one way can always be based on the assumption that the Earth is stationary in the center. Therefore, given two reification fallacies to choose from, a reification fallacy with the stationary Earth is always going to seem more plausible than one where Earth has to be assumed to be moving. We came to the conclusion earlier that we are willing to suspend our disbelief, that's Q Nathan, about the crazy notion that the Earth is in motion because we have come to trust the authority of the physical sciences. No, you haven't. There's no physical science in here. But in Copernicus's day, science did not have the same commanding authority. This has deep ramifications right here. Nathan's going to be over this.
I am,
So
but-
what made Copernicus believe that the Earth was in motion, and why did others come to believe it too? End of book.
Hey,
I just
before-
want to know what the political philosophy of science is, that they have an authority. You know?
Yes, those are very different things also are in good comparison. I want to come back to the, what did he call it? Pythagorean trig. I'm back on page 10, I believe. Yes, 10.
Oh, Pythagorean astronomy. Hold on, wait a second.
That'll be relating to the philosophical schools of the Greeks at that time. So they do look at that. But as far as I'm aware, I think that's what the text alludes to. They're suggesting balls moving in the heavens, but it's still a geocentric situation with Earth at the center of all this heavenly movements. But the heavenly movements are described, certainly the planetas are described as spheres. It's kind of.
I appreciate that, but would that not be more akin to the equatorial plane geocentric system when measuring the angles to refer to that method of measuring triangles?
No, it comes from there, but when you're referencing that, it's using geometry, but it's not a heliocentric model. There's nothing like that. They're still using those old understandings of Earth and then the different types of heaven and placing different luminaries in different types of heaven. That's all it's talking about there, and then putting orbital mechanics still in that flat system. They're not suggesting the surfaces are ball in that point, but
That's what I
when it
mean.
moves
I've just
to
brought it up. That's what I mean.
yeah.
That's what I mean. Regardless of what the lights in the sky may be in that, I'm not focused on that. I'm just focused on the fact that what they're then doing is just a flat plane with the dome of the heavens over it, right?
Yes, yeah, the Earth's in the center, and it's not assumed to be a sphere, as far as I'm aware, in any of the Pythagorean schools, which is early Greeks, BC.
No.
So hold on a second. The phrase actually is ancient Pythagorean astronomers. That's it.
Okay.
No, we must run from this favored position. Run, flee.
The point I'm making there is when you describe those Pythagoreans there, you're describing a school of philosophy. So they ascribe to Pythagorean philosophy, which will include the mathematics, but
No, I
lots of
get
other
you.
things.
It was my bad, my
the
ignorance.
logos,
Thank you for
etc.
clarifying it, though. Let's not labour how ignorant I am. Thank you, Adam.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Or we can all pause and have a bit of dead air and contemplate how ignorant I am instead.
Okay, you got. Just read.
Stop being ignorant of how ignorant you are.
Let me save you. Go to the last slide, which is the back of the book, and I'm just going to post all the slides from where we ended the first reading to page 11, so you can see who he's referencing. And but go ahead and read the back of the book and see what it says there.
I've got it up if you want to read it.
I got it. Sorry, I was on mute. So the green one's the back of the book?
Indeed.
When Nicholas Copernicus claimed that the Earth was not stationary at the center of the universe, but circled the sun, he brought about a total revolution in the sciences and consternation in the church. Really? Copernicus's theory, really would like to see that. Does any baller have Copernicus's theory?
He doesn't have a theory.
Yeah. Copernicus's theory demanded a new physics, really, to explain motion and force, a new theory of space, and a completely new conception of the nature of our universe. He also showed for the first time that a common sense view of things isn't necessarily correct, and that mathematics can and does reveal the true nature of the material world. Cue the next housekeeping question.
That's
John
galling as hell.
That's outrageous, isn't it? The maths reveals the physics. No, it fucking doesn't. It reveals nothing. It's abstract.
That it's better than that. He phrased it. Listen to this. A common sense view of things isn't necessarily correct, and that mathematics can and does reveal the true nature of the material world. There you go. Did you get it?
Yeah, it
Ask
doesn't.
him, ask him, QE, right? If I've got 2 ice creams,
Yeah.
The ice creams.
Let me finish it up.
Yeah.
It's only a couple paragraph, one paragraph. As John Henry reveals, from his idea of a swiftly moving Earth, Copernicus sowed the seed from which science has grown to be a dominant aspect of our modern culture, fundamental in shaping our understanding of the workings of the cosmos.
Yeah.
So,
Pseudoscience.
from Morningstar, I guess this is, I know what Morningstar is. Just a comment on the book. Contains a wealth of detail about the book. An ideal introduction to Copernicus. And this is part of the Icon Science 25th Anniversary Series, a collection of books and groundbreaking moments in science history. There you go. The end.
When it says which science has grown to be a dominant aspect, it's not science. It's pseudoscience.
If you Google Copernicus revolution, it tells you clearly there in black and white. It's on Wikipedia. The heliocentric model was put together in 2 phases. The first phase was heavily mathematical, took 17 years. It tells you in black and white, it's just mathematical.
the text
you know what that
also
was?
reveals, doesn't it? It says he demanded a new physics. Had he got this physics, or is he waiting for someone to invent this physics to validate his thing? Otherwise, it's just something that has, at the point of release, it's a clever way of saying physics doesn't back this up.
We need a
It's
new
like a new
physics.
hotness, man.
But he tells you where he's found it. We need a new way of describing the physical world. So, because the way of describing the physical world currently, that's physics. We'll use maths as our physics. In other words, he's justifying pseudoscience. In other words, not physics, not an adherence to the scientific method, not science, a new science of maths.
And really, if you hear what he said, sorry, Brian was trying to get in just real quick. When he said it demanded a new physics, it also spoke about space there too. So he's talking about this new physics in this world or this place that no one's ever experienced. And it happens to be a second law of thermodynamics currently.
Yeah, that came later.
That's the heresy, isn't it? That's the heresy that's described. It causing trouble with the church.
Hold on,
Because,
Brian's been waiting for ages. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I just want to say this is history working at its finest, because this is so clouded and shrouded in nonsense. The only thing that made the heliocentric model possible was Johannes Kepler. And this is what that 17 years is about. Taking astrology, right, that was geocentric, that also Brahe learned that was geocentric, because all astrology was geocentric. And they learned astronomy through astrology. And the same with Galileo. But Kepler took the geocentric, right, sun movements and all that data, and that's why they took 17 years to back engineer into the Copernican idea. It's not a theory. And that's why it took so long. It took 2 decades of getting it wrong. And that's why we ended up with a globe that has a 23.4 degree tilt and is closer in the southern summer and further in the northern summer from the sun. Elliptical orbit, offset elliptical orbit, blah, blah, blah. You know, this constantly changing motion of the Earth, the globe around the sun, to make up for the fact that the sun appears to move faster and slower throughout the year, and it'll be higher and lower in the sky.
No, you're right. We do dance
This
past
complete
it.
not on nonsense.
We got it all from Kepler. I mean, we do mention it, but we don't really go into any detail when we say, well, we just focus on the assumptions that he used. But it's like, and then you apply Kepler's third law, and that's all we say, right? In other words, the development over those 17 years where they figured out how it'd all have to be within those maths. But that's a fairly, I don't want to say rigid, but, it's laid down in those abstract mathematics. Those scaling values
I
have
have a
come from him.
question.
Sorry,
Simpler
Neil.
than that.
I have a question first.
Okay.
You see how QE was reading it and everybody was just picking it apart? Where were the QEs, the Adams, the Nathans, the 10th man of the day, the Bryans of the day? They just let this go? There was nobody there to pick
No, they
it
didn't.
off?
No.
They didn't, Neil. They didn't. Tycho Brahe was against it. And Johannes Kepler was an assistant to Tycho Brahe. And they reckoned he poisoned Tycho Brahe.
Yeah, he killed him.
Yeah.
According
that's
to
what
the...
they say.
Hold
But
on,
Tycho,
you bloody cherry-picking fundies.
this is the story.
Hold on. So let me get it straight. You're gonna lift that bit of the story as though it's absolutely unequivocally true, not just a story from those who control the history books. We talked about Orwell a little bit in this show, so let's expand on Orwell's concepts of the memory hole and he who controls the past. Well, if you're the person in the control of the narrative and there's people who oppose you, you're going to thoroughly document that for Neil to find years later, or are you going to make it seem like, well, where were the people who were opposing it before, even if they're in their thousands? You're not going to document any of it, are you? You're going to create a nice little story about a man called Kepler from a long time ago. That's what you'll do if you've got the narrative that you want to infiltrate the masses with. You'll have a whole bunch of historical narratives laid out, because who's going to validate or invalidate them?
What
there
about
was
the
probably
idea
groups.
that
But meanwhile, there's a poisoning afoot. Let's get Columbo.
I found the forward to Copernicus's book. You want to hear it?
Oh yes, please. I almost did go and look at it when he suggested to do it. Have you posted it, or are you just going to read it?
I'm just going to read it.
Go ahead. Yes, please, definitely.
It's the forward on the revolution of heavenly spheres, 1543, by Nicholas Copernicus. The forward is written by Andreas Osiander. And I quote, "So far as hypotheses are concerned, let no one expect anything certain from astronomy, which cannot furnish it, lest he accept as the truth ideas conceived for another purpose and depart from the study a greater fool than when he entered it." End of citation.
with it?
They find no hypothesis.
And how can a man demand a new form of physics? I thought you just, like what he's saying, you had to go with reality or F off. You know what I mean? Like, how can you demand anything? You're just supposed to watch what happens and just put that down. You're not supposed to have any new form of anything.
Well, break down what that's actually saying. I was just about to round out, but I won't. What is physics? To have a new form of it, what is it in the first instance?
Study of the physical.
Physical.
So we need to have a new study of the physical, is what he's saying. Well, that's
Using the abstract. Yes.
I was getting there. I was leading him there. What's his solution in the next sentence for the new study of the physical, which is what physics is? Does he offer one?
Mathematics.
He offers a bit of maths. That's not physical. The contradiction's being laid out right there and then for you. We need a new version of physical reality. You know what we're going to give you? We're going to give you abstract descriptions in place of physical reality.
Sorry, Nathan. I just want to point out that every observation to everything in the sky was always taken as an angle off a flat plane.
What he actually meant to say, a new model of the physical reality, or representing the physical reality.
Yeah, abstract maths to represent physics. It's like, we study physics by looking at the physical. That's what it is. But we need a new version of looking at physical when we've got descriptions of things that don't exist. That's all they're doing, substituting the physical for maths. When we say pseudoscience and non-adherence to the scientific method and show what they've actually presented, a load of equations, they've substituted science, the study of the physical, with the abstract. That's all that's being done. It's being laid out. They're saying it. They just use how they've got a whatever, prefaces it with then science, and then how it's maths, within literally one sentence, normally only divided by a comma.
I got another question, real quick. So when the other side, our opponents, read this, what are they seeing? Are they not seeing this?
They don't hear the joke from the guy laughing at the end of each statement when he's wrote it so beautifully. When he says, "Don't worry your precious little head about it, there's people far more competent than you who understand the maths of the physics." That guy writing it's laughing at the person reading it. He's probably having a right good chuckle to himself while he does it. But the person who takes the surface level explanation, the surface explanation is to say we live on a sphere, isn't it, Neil? You've had it prefaced and contextualised by us. So you're saying, how can somebody read this and go, it's laughing in my face and telling me how they've used the abstract to describe physics? No, Neil. I just can say the same exact thing I've just said, but with slightly different intonation in my voice. They're telling you how they use the maths to describe the physics, Neil. You see how I said the exact same thing with a slightly different intonation, and suddenly I'm a fundy believing in a sphere because that's what the surface level is telling you in this text. It's just the guy who's telling you that it's really maths is laughing at you while he does it, and presuming, probably rightly so, given the world affairs, Western worldview that we are on a sphere, he's right in laughing at them, isn't he, Neil? Jupiter's delight.
Well, that's why we end up with somebody telling us that math is reality, right?
Well, I think, I don't know. I don't think I would take that position.
Oh, God.
What
Here we
position?
go. Oh, I might have to eat a bit of humble pie. I was just about to round out again. Go on, John.
Well, just because he's confused on what math and the physical is may lead him to state such nonsense as truth. That doesn't necessarily mean he understands the implications of what he just said in that forward.
Well, I just want to point out, to do any of this, right, Kepler and Copernicus and any other jokers before them needed to know the dual radii of their globe. Where did they get that? Flat Earth elevation angles to Polaris. So they're quite jokers. They needed that before they could do any of this nonsense. Because their globe has to match the heavens, we see.
Go on, John.
Well, yeah, that's true. But did anyone ever pose to them whether they could have a curved adjacent as an argument?
Did anybody ever what? Pose to them?
Did anyone ever point out to them that you can't have a curved adjacent when they were taking the measurements that they were presupposing were spherical?
No, okay, let me answer. It's addressed to me. I know it is. No, I agree. I will concede that I can't necessarily ascribe Jupiter's delight to a lying shit when really ignorance versus malice. Okay, fine, I'll eat humble pie. No, maybe he never had the curved adjacent pointed out to him. Yeah, John's laughing because he's put it out there to his audience that this is somehow two camps, right? Just because I go around calling people who are demonstrable liars, and occasionally hint at it like I do now, suddenly that's my fucking worldview and it opposes John's. So he's putting it out there for some, I don't know, dramatic reasons, John. What gives?
What's John? I know
you know you're doing this. You're the one who just laughed. You know what you're doing.
Yeah, but when you say John, there's two Johns here, so you got to be specific.
I should suggest we should focus on that little bit of confusion rather than me now having to repackage the exact same question. So what is it with this us and them? Like, I think everybody out there's lying. You're packaging it like I'm some conspirator that thinks everyone's lying to me when it isn't. Even though in this particular second, which is why my blood's boiling, it does seem that way because of John, right? And I admit it. In this context, I'll eat humble pie and say, no, I can't attribute malice to this. Right, I concede. And it is the second time in the last 2 days. Bloody hell.
Yeah, those are the only two camps left because the argument's been over, actually, since first come out here, but this is really the only one that's left to be adjudicated.
But there's no malice needed. The guy has faith in his science. That's all he needs. Just have a little
Let's
faith.
adjudicate it right now. I agree with you. Right? I think people perpetuating the sphere Earth lie, if we're going to call it that for contextual reasons to this discussion, they as individuals can't be labelled liars. Therefore, a misunderstanding of the sphere Earth, man, it doesn't have the same dramatic impact, does it? But I will concede right here, right now, I think you're right. It has definitely been around generationally long enough for no one to be ascribed any forethought of malice and scheming to perpetuate this into society. It just is at this moment in time. Therefore, who can you point the finger at as outright liars? There's a handful of people. I'll go through them now. People who you demonstrate to be liars with their own words. Right. I'm never going to take that back and say, oh, well, actually, Charles isn't a lying shit when I've proved he lied. No, I'm never going to do that. Astronauts. When you've got somebody who's saying they've been to a place that doesn't exist, somebody will vehemently say they have been to Narnia. You know, when it's, you know, obvious right now in this discussion that Narnia is not real and somebody saying that they've been there, you're going to be more than content to say, no, they're just lying. They definitely haven't been to Narnia. Well, when everyone appreciates that there's a second law of thermodynamics violation area of space they claim to have been to and can't possibly have been, you'll stand by me in saying that they're lying when they say they have, because they know they haven't, therefore definitely lying. But beyond that handful of people and obvious demonstrated examples of people that are liars, then no, there is no they, the overlords, the Masons, the church, the whoever you want to say. If you get to the top of that particular tree and have the guy at the top, the Pope, to account and shake him and go, why are you lying about the globe? He'll go, I'm not. What are you talking about?
At the root of the problem, it is a lie. So overall, you're correct. We're just talking about the individuals in the community, in the circuit. But you are correct. There is a lie, right? And who is the father of lies?
Satan.
You got that correct.
Right.
There's your lie.
But there's your get out before we focus on the Satan aspect. There's no malice that can be attributed to you. There's a get out of jail free card, even if you've been permeating this crap for however long. At the moment you realise, which is why I have a particular disdain for anti-flat earthers, because as far as I'm concerned, that whole malice and they've got the arguments, they've got them broken down, and they're trying to find ways around them by giving us a flat earth. You're on very dodgy ground there when it comes to deceit and lies, aren't you? Now, I'm not going to argue the toss that they are lying in this instance, and often they don't very specifically get labelled liars when they do that. But you're on pretty dodgy ground when you know the argument and you're having to concede bits and weasel bits, and that's, you know, grey area, let's just call it, for those people.
Yep.
But for the most people, my main point is that they've got to get out of jail free card. None of us, especially in this discussion, are going to ascribe malice to you. You didn't know. You weren't lying, but you were peddling a lie. I think that's your point if you want to follow on from that. There is a lie afoot, and you perpetuated that lie. It doesn't mean you were a liar or lying. You didn't know any better. You were ignorant. Well, now you're not. You've got a choice to make. Start lying, which is where I come back to my grey area, or don't, as the case may be, or realise the obvious and observable nature of your reality and the fact you've been lied to. Rather than demanding that those liars give you the truth, or that I give you the truth if I'm the one that's pointed it out, just realise the overriding fact you've been lied to. And what you've actually got beneath your feet isn't what you've been told. That is the lie. Doesn't matter who told it, you don't start ascribing malice to the people who still go out disseminating it. Do what I've done, open your doors, and you'll get people hopefully sending you PayPals when you e-beg.
I don't need to add anything to what you said previously. You articulated magnificently.
Oh, thank you very much. Does anybody else want to add anything, though?
No objections.
With that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, hitting the PayPal link to help me out with the hard times of January and February and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!